What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another amazing Naruto story. What if Naruto was banished and built his own hidden village? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description box to original creator of this beautiful creation. Naruto Uzumaki stood across from Sasuke Uchiha as they stood at the feet of the statues of Hashirama Senju and Madara Uchiha. Naruto stood at the foot of Hashirama while Sasuke was in Madara's. Naruto was shrouded in a dense red chakra that looked to be made up of red with bubbles, 2 long ears, and a long foxtail. Within the shroud, his hair was longer, spikier and wilder than it usually was, with the whisker marks broader and thicker, and his eyes were a deep blood red with black slits. On the other hand, Sasuke had dark gray skin, with his black hair now longer and dark blue. His sclera had turned a darker shade of gray than his skin, and out of his back, he grew a pair of webbed claw-shaped wings. Both boys glared at one another as they formed their signature technique in their hands. In Naruto's right hand, chakra started to gather and spin around in a ball that started blue but turned into a deep purple shade. Lighting formed in Sasuke's left hand that slowly started to turn back, and the sound of chirping birds turned to that of flapping wings. They took one last look at the other before they jumped at each other with their arms held out. Yoko Rasengan, Habataku Chidori, they both called out. Sasuke drove his Chidori into Naruto's heart. On the other hand, Naruto aimed his Rasengan at Sasuke's shoulder, dislocating it. Just before the Chidori burst his heart, he sent out his tail and pulled Sasuke's other arm out of its socket. Both boys screamed as they fell to the ground. With Naruto passing out, the red chakra around him started to move to the hole in his chest, and Sasuke's skin started to turn back to normal. As they hit the floor, they drifted off to unsoundness. But as Naruto's eyes closed, his eyes changed from blue to purple, with concentric circles covering the eyes. Hours went by as the boys lay on the ground, with the only sound being the rushing of the water before their sensei, Kakashi Hatake, turned up. He looked at both of them before summoning a large hound and placing Sasuke on it. "Bull, make sure that if he wakes up, you do not let him out of your sight, and if needs to be, end him," Kakashi said as he lifted Naruto up into his arm and looked into the blonde's chest. And what he saw he did not like. If it were not for the fox, he would be dead, Kakashi thought as he and Bull jumped away and toward Konoha. "I taught Sasuke how to use the Chidori, and I knew it was a bad idea, but," he told himself in thought. So he rushed to Konoha, where he met with medics who were going to Sasuke first. Naruto Uzumaki as a priority as Sasuke Uchiha is currently unconscious, but he was going to join the enemy, Kakashi said as he held up Sasuke's Hide 8. They saw the gash on it, so they started to work on Naruto as they made their way to Konoha. 3 days later, Konoha, Hokage Tower, courtroom. Both sides of the courtroom were arguing and shouting with each other, or, more accurately, the clan heads and the ninja and civilian sides. "The Uchiha should be executed," the Izumo clan head yelled. "He did nothing wrong as it was the demon brat, so have him executed," the head of Konoha's shopping district yelled back. "Oh, please, you don't even know the first thing about seals," and from what Inoichi pulled out of his head, "The Uchiha went voluntarily," Jiraiya said from where he stood. The members of the civilian council scowled at the sage before shooting a look at the Yamanaka's head. "You had no right to do that to someone who did nothing wrong," the head of Konoha's banks yelled out as Sume Inuzuka started yelling back that because of the Uchiha, her son was in the hospital along with the rest of the team. Tsunade and the elders stayed out of the arguing as they observed the verbal tennis. The elder in bandages looked over to his leader. "As you healed both of them, what was the exact damage that both of them had, and how much healing was needed?" he asked her as the council members quieted down. For Sasuke Uchiha, he only sustained dislocated arms and cracked ribs from where he fell at the Valley of the End, Tsunade said as she told them all. Naruto, on the other hand, had his spine broken, along with both his arms and a hole where his heart is that was getting fixed by the Kyuubi who saved him, she told them as the ninja looked pleased as they knew that Naruto had fought hard. "So if Uzumaki did not have the Kyuubi sealed within him, he would be dead," Kaharu said before she sighed. Hiashi shook his head. "So that is how the Uchiha thank someone for saving their lives from a tailed beast," he said as he looked over to the civilian council. "He tries to kill him, just like them thieves," he told them with a scoff. So what he was ordered to do was only bring Sasuke back without harm. The head of Konoha's education said, but Shikaku sighed. Wrong. The mission was to bring back Sasuke Uchiha by any means necessary, and as we have been saying for the past 2 days now, the amount of force was necessary, and it worked, but for how long I wonder, he told them as an Anbu appeared in the room. Yes, Snake, Tsunade asked the masked ninja. Both Sasuke Uchiha and Naruto Uzumaki have woken up Tsunade-sama, Snake said as they looked up at their Hokage. Then bring them here so that the demon brat can. The head of the banks yelled out before a sword appeared at his neck. We only take orders from the Hokage, the Anbu behind him said as the man nodded. Bring them, and I want the Uchiha in chains, Tsunade called out as the Anbu nodded. And Uzumaki, Snake asked. If he cannot work, aid him, but he has done nothing wrong, she told Snake, who nodded as he disappeared from the room to get both genin. Sasuke Uchiha was led in with chains around him when they returned while Anbu helped Naruto into the room. Sasuke Uchiha, Naruto Uzumaki, do you both know why you have been called here today? Danzo asked the two boys, who looked up at him. I'm here because the civilian council does not like that I have enough power to stop the Uchiha from going rogue, Naruto said as Sasuke glared at him. Council members joined the Uchiha in sending hateful looks at Naruto. While we would not say that, you are correct, the head of the Nara clan said as he tried to hide his smile. Can you tell us how the mission went from when you left the village to when you woke up in the hospital? Shikaku asked him as Naruto nodded. Chunin Shikamaru Nara called me along with Genin Neji Hyuga, Kiba Inuzuka, and Choji Akamichi was sent after Genin Sasuke Uchiha, who had voluntarily left with 4 people from Oto with Genin Sakura Haruno being the only one to having seen him leave. We went to her first, Naruto was saying before a cough stopped him as he looked over to the civilian side to see the head of Konoha Bank was stopping him. That is very interesting now if you would get to the point, he said before an Anbu appeared behind him with a sword at his neck. One of my ninjas is speaking, so be silent while he speaks, Tsunade said before nodding to Naruto. Sakura told us that Sasuke left Konoha around 11 o'clock last night, and Shikamaru told us that the mission was a retrieve mission, be that dead or alive, Naruto said as the civilian side was shouting before Tsunade shut them up. Anyway, we all move out with each of us fighting a manner of this Oto team with Choji fighting the first one who caught us in Doden Kekai, Doro Domu, and then Neji was taken off to fight someone who had a spider like Kekkei Genkei or something, Naruto said as ninja sighed as the team of 5 was already down 2 members. After that, Kiba went to fight someone or 2 people, I don't know, as it looked like he was fighting 2 people in one body, Naruto said as they all nodded. Then Shikamaru was the next one to face one of Oto ninja as Sasuke was then released from some form of sealing and was making his way out of the land of fire. And I made chase until I met someone who could use their bones to fight, the blonde added as the ninja looked at each other. Bones, you say, Inoichi asked as Naruto nodded. Yes, but Genin Rock Lee came out of nowhere and aided me and fought the Oto ninja in my stead while I went after Sasuke. And we met at the Valley of the End, Naruto told them as they all nodded. When I met up with he had his curse mark over him. And we fought with him, killing me 3 times and if not for the Kyuubi I would be dead, Naruto said shocking people even Sasuke who looked at him. What do you mean he killed you 3 times, Sume asked him. Naruto looked at her, the first time was when he snapped my neck completely, and then the Kyuubi fixed that, and we continued fighting. The second time was when he shoved a Chidori into my heart, destroying it, and the Kyuubi put it back together. We continued fighting and then, for the final attack where I dislocated his arm he shoved a Chidori that was powered up with the curse seals into my chest destroying my heart once more, Naruto said to them as they looked at each other. So the Uchiha has not only become a traitor but also has committed treason by attacking Konoha's weapon of war, Inoichi said as the civilian side scowled at him. Tsunade looked over to Sasuke with a raised brow. What do you have to say in your defense? She asked him. Sasuke looked up. I was going off to be a spy for Konoha, Sasuke said as Inoichi started laughing. I would have seen that thought when I was in your head, he told Sasuke as the Uchiha sent a hateful look up to the Yamanaka clan head. So you have no defense? Tsunade asked the Uchiha, who moved his hateful look over to her. Now then, with no defense for what you have done, I, Tsunade, the Godem Hokage, sentence you, Sasuke Uchiha, to life imprisonment for the crimes that you have committed, them being the time of treason, Attempted manslaughter, Tsunade told Sasuke as Anbu appeared next to Sasuke. Then we, of the Civilian Council, banish Naruto Uzumaki for hurting and almost killing the last Uchiha along with and for being a risk to Konoha. A member of the Civilian Council yelled out as the ninja turned to him. And we have the signatures of both the daimyo and his wife, he said before laughter filled the room. Everyone turned to see Naruto laughing, and Jiraiya was chuckling. What is it? A female member of the Civilian Council asked with fear on her face. Oh, it's nothing, Jiraiya said as he straightened up. It's just that I owe the brat 500 ryo for the stunt you just pulled, he told them before turning to Naruto. So I think it's time to tell them that we are not here, the sage said as the council members looked shocked. We're Kage Bunshin, and the originals have not been in Konoha for 24 hours, the clone of Jiraiya said as the ninja council smiled. What? The head of Konoha Bank yelled out. The boss knew what you lot were planning to do the moment that boss was put on that mission. Now that he is not a Konoha ninja anymore, I can show these to you, the clone of Naruto said as he stood up before forming the seal of confrontation and called out, Kai. The council saw that the clone's blue eyes had changed to solid blue, with one eye having a slight silver hint, but both eyes had concentric circles covering them. Rinnegan, the head of the Fuma clan said as he saw the eyes on the clone, is this a trick? He asked the clone of Jiraiya. Nope, the kid has the Rinnegan, the clone told him. The boss awakened it when he fought Uchiha over there, the clone said as he pointed his thumb at Sasuke. And with these being the strongest dojutsu around, I wondered what was going to happen to Konoha, the clone of Naruto said, as the Civilian Council did not like the words he used. What do you mean? The head of Konoha Education asked. The clone of the blonde looked over. My father, your Yondaime Hokage, made me Konoha's weapon of war, he told them as Tsunade raised a brow at him. So you knew, she said as the Civilian Council started sweating. Yep, and with your weapon of war now banished from Konoha, I can't help but wonder what is going to happen when other villages catch word of this information, the clone of Jiraiya told them as both clones started laughing once more. And with how this village uses seals that the kid's clan made, seals that we had taken back, he said as the three elders' eyes shot wide. That includes our barrier, Kaharu said with a faint voice. That it does. We took all of that along with all the money that belonged to the Uzumaki clan and Minato Namikaze along with the scroll of seals as that was made with Uzumaki seals, the clone of Naruto said with a wave of his hand. Sume glared over to the Civilian Council. What have you done? She growled at them as they looked at him in shock. And the original Jiraiya even took the scrolls that rightfully belonged to Naruto from Tsunade's desk, the clone of Jiraiya said before both clones were dispelled as the ninja side as a whole glared over at the civilian side. I call a vote to disband the Civilian Council, Sume said as hands started to shoot up. While they did that, Danzo gained a look in his eye. Everything is coming together now, he thought. Deep within the forest, Naruto and Jiraiya were walking through the forest when they stopped and turned toward Konoha. So it seems that the clones that we left in Konoha just ran out of chakra, the sage said as Naruto nodded. Yep, Naruto said with a sad smile on his face. Jiraiya looked at him before sighing. I know you wanted to be Hokage, but we could just drift for now, Jiraiya said to him as Naruto looked at the man with a raised brow. Naruto asked him. Konoha has spit on the memory of a student that I treated like a son and how they treated my godson, so I handed in my resignation and headband, Jiraiya told him as Naruto nodded before they both continued walking through the woods. So what do you want to do then, kid? Jiraiya asked him as Naruto looked off. But he could only think of one thing. Is it possible to make a village? Naruto asked the sage, who nodded. It is, Jiraiya said as he looked at the blonde beside him. Is that what you want to do? He asked his student, who nodded. Jiraiya smiled. Then the first thing we're going to need to do is make you stronger, Kage level, Jiraiya said as Naruto smiled at him. And we need a location for your village, the sage added as Naruto nodded. Naruto started to think of locations for where he could build his village as they walked with Jiraiya, thinking up ideas on how to get Naruto to Kage level before they found a lot of cut down trees littered around them. So this is where that Naraboy fought that Oto Kunoichi, Jiraiya said as both of them jumped up to the top of the tree to continue, but Naruto stopped. What is it? Jiraiya asked as he saw that Naruto was looking off. Someone is dying over there, Naruto said as he jumped over to where the person was with Jiraiya behind him. And what they found shocked them both. It was the Oto Kunoichi who had a broken back but looked like she would die any moment. She was a fair-skinned girl with a slender build, and she had brown eyes that were accentuated by her eyelashes extending into the corners of her eyes and her long, untamed, dark pink hair that fell past her shoulders with long parted bangs framing either side of her face and one between her eyes. Her attire was a black shirt under a tan tunic with elbow-length sleeves that bore the symbol of the Sound 4 on the hem, black skin-tight shorts along with black arm warmers, traditional black shinobi sandals with calf-length leg warmers covered by bandages, and purple, rope-like belt tied in an inverted bow around her waist and to keep her wild hair out of the way. Naruto remembered her name, Tayuya, from when he went to fight her, but Shikamaru stopped him. "Oh, fuck, it's you," Tayuya said as she looked up at the two of them with her face in a mixture of a sneer and a wince of pain. "Well, what are you waiting for, a fucking invitation?" she asked them as Naruto walked over to her. "Your mission failed," he told her as he looked at her. "So the duck ass was brought back to the tree fuckers?" Tayuya asked him. "Yep, and if you want, I can heal you," he told her. Jiraiya looked at him with a raised brow but said nothing. "Why the fuck would you do that? I'm your enemy," she told Naruto, who rolled his eyes. "I was banished from Konoha, and if I'm going to take a guess, your master does not like failure," Naruto said as Jiraiya nodded. That sounded like his former teammate. She narrowed her eyes at him, and then, "What do you want me to do? Join you?" Tayuya asked him as she looked up at Naruto, who shrugged at her. "If you want," he said as he knelt. "You know medical ninjutsu?" Jiraiya asked him as Naruto nodded. "Yes, Shizune taught me the basics when we were on our way back to Konoha," Naruto said as he held his arm out. "And with her help, when we got back, we found that I could transfer my chakra to them in a small wave," Naruto told him as the Kunoichi looked at him, confused. "So what?" Tayuya said as Naruto rolled his eyes. "I'm going to need you to bite my arm, and I can heal you," Naruto said as she looked at him before she bit his arm and was covered in a thin layer of green chakra as their face relaxed from the pain that they were in, as all of the cuts that littered her body healed slowly before sealing up entirely, and her broken back was fixed as well along, and she felt that her. But she felt none of it as Naruto numbed the pain that she was in before Naruto stopped and then held out his arm and looked at him confused. Her stamina returned to her before she removed her mouth from Naruto's arm. Both of them started to stand up, and Naruto turned his back on the Oto ninja, who looked at him in shock. "Aren't you going to ask me to join you?" Tayuya asked him as both he and Jiraiya started to walk away from her. Naruto stopped before he turned to her with a smile and closed eyes. "I'm not your master. I'm going to let you pick your path," he told her, and Tayuya felt something watch over her. It was like a blanket of warmth. She did not want to lose that warmth. "I'll join you," she told Naruto, who looked at her before nodding and turning to Jiraiya. "So where are we going, Aro Sennin?" Naruto asked him. Jiraiya rolled his eyes at his student but pulled out a map. "The first thing we're going to do is teach the both of you some kenjutsu," Jiraiya said as both Tayuya and Naruto looked at him. "What? Why the fuck would we start with that?" Tayuya asked him. Jiraiya turned to her. "Naruto is thinking about starting a village, and I think that our new village needs to specialize in something," he told them. "That sounds good," Naruto said with a nod as the three started to walk. "So girly, what do you know?" Jiraiya asked her as they walked across the destroyed trees. "First, my name is Tayuya, and the normal stuff that a ninja of Oto knows, the forming sound technique, the Kawarimi no Jutsu, Funyu no Jutsu, Kaifu no Jutsu, Nawanuke no Jutsu, Serento Kiringu, Henge no Jutsu along with the Kanbi Henge, Kinobori no Shugyo, Suimin Hoko no Gyo," she said as Jiraiya nodded and wrote down her abilities, "and with me being the Genjutsu specialist of the Sound 4, I used my flute to cast Mateki. Genbu Sokyoku, Mateki. Mugen Onsa. My curse seal that is under the 4 Sound 4 curse seals with mine being the Kita no Juin. I have both Busashoku Haki and Kenbunshoku Haki, Kekai Hojin. I can summon Doki, and with them, I can use both Mateki. Genbu Sokyoku and Shukyoku Daikusetsu. Makio no Ran. And recently the other members of the Sound 4 and I learned how to use Mateki. Sanju Sokyoku, Shishienjin and Shikakumujin," she finished telling the sage. And Jiraiya shook his head. "What is it, you fuck-wit?" she asked him. "What rank were you?" he asked as she looked at him, confused. I was a Jonin, she told him, and he winced. What is it, Aro Sennin? Naruto asked him. It seems my former teammate does not want his ninja stronger than a Chunin, Jiraiya said, and Tayuya did not like what she heard. He did always have that problem, even when he had his team in Konoha, he told them as they walked across the destroyed trees. What do you mean? Tayuya asked him. Orochimaru has this problem believing that a teacher should always be stronger than a student and the weak should only be used as pawns on a chessboard. Jiraiya told her as she did not like what she heard before he shook his head. Anyway, I'm going to build the both of you up until you're both cage level. Jiraiya told them as they nodded at him. So what's the first thing we're going to learn? Tayuya asked him. The sage said nothing but picked up a leaf off the ground and held it up. I'm going to start with elemental training and to start a fire. So I want you to use your chakra to make the leaf burst into flames. But not destroy the leaf, he informed them as the leaf caught fire. However, they could still see the leaf within the flames. The trick is knowing how much chakra to use, he said as Naruto and Tayuya looked at each other before picking up a leaf. They tried to do as the sage did, and the leaves did catch fire. But the leaves burned to ash. Keep trying that until we reach the next town, Jiraiya told them as they nodded. The two picked up more leaves and started walking again. After they left the forest, they found bone spikes. They looked around. What the? Naruto asked as he looked around. Now, this is new, Jiraiya said before Tayuya saw something that caught her eye. Hey, I know that guy, she said as she pointed up, and they saw the upper body of someone sticking out of a significant bone spike. Yep, that Kimimaro, she said as they started to make their way, and Naruto saw that this guy was going to die at any second. Kimimaro had pale skin, vivid green eyes, angular facial features, with 2 scarlet dots on his forehead, which all the members of his clan possessed, and shoulder-length white hair, which he wore divided down the middle of his head, distinguished by an atypical, zigzag, hair parting, with 2 separate partings on either side of his face. But Naruto did not like what he saw. Kimimaro looked like he was using his chakra to keep himself alive. But his time was running out. So he did the same for this guy as he did for Tayuya. Excuse me, Naruto said as he called out to Kimimaro, and the eyes slowly opened to look at him. The blonde boy, he said slowly as he looked at Naruto, did Orochimaru-sama get Sasuke? Kimimaro asked the blonde. No, but if you want, I can heal you, Naruto said as he held out his arm. I have no purpose to live, he told Naruto as his eyes drooped. And Naruto did not want him to die. Then let me give you one, Naruto told him as the man looked up at him. What? He asked Naruto, who held out his arm. Let me give you a reason to live, Naruto told him as he walked closer to him. Now, open your mouth, he told him as the man did as described, and Naruto put his arm in Kimimaro's mouth and bit down. Like the girl's hair before him, Kimimaro was covered in a green veil of chakra. Kimimaro looked at Naruto as he felt strength, stamina, and worth returned to him. The blonde told him he would protect the man, and his illness, which had been with him since birth, was getting beaten back slowly, thanks to Naruto's chakra. Kimimaro pulled himself out of the bone spike to show he was dressed in clothes similar to Tayuya's. His clothes consisted of light lavender, loose-fitting, long-sleeved, zip-up shirt, black pants cut off around mid-calf, bandages wrapped around his ankles, traditional shinobi sandals, and a purple, rope-like belt tied in an inverted bow around his waist along with black pants. Kimimaro looked at Naruto before kneeling to him. I shall follow you until my final breath, he told Naruto, and the blonde nodded. A few hours later, the small group of 4 made camp in the forest not that far from the Valley of the End, with Naruto saying that he would go and hunt something. You're going to let him hunt alone? Tayuya asked Jiraiya, who looked up at her. He's a skilled hunter, and I saw it when Tsunade, Shizune, Naruto, and I were returning to Konoha to make Tsunade Hokage, Jiraiya said as Kimimaro looked confused. So Naruto-sama will be able to get his food, he asked as Jiraiya nodded. After a few hours with Jiraiya talking with both former Auto ninjas, the sound of crunching earth, the 3 turned to see a dire wolf with a deer over its back and 2 rabbits attached to ropes hanging from its mouth. The large wolf placed the rabbits on the ground and let the deer slip off its back. Everyone started looking for a weapon as they saw the wolf's body shift. It started with moving from standing on 4 legs to 2, and the tail was pulled into its body. The 3 looked amazed. The front legs turned into arms, the paws into hands, and the wolf's head turned into a human head. It was Naruto, and they saw the fur being pulled into him, showing his clothes. "Naruto-sama," Kimimaro asked him as the blonde scratched the back of his head. "Sorry about that," he told them as Tayuya shot up. "What the fuck was that just then?" she asked him as she pointed at him. "It's to do with my mother and some abilities that she passed on to me," Naruto said as Jiraiya narrowed his eyes. "What do you mean?" he asked the blonde, who sighed. "I'll show you, but I need something first if that's alright," Naruto asked as the sage nodded. "Can you make a rainbow for me to use?" he asked the sage. The three looked confused, but Jiraiya did as he asked. He filled a glass cup with water before pulling out a flashlight and using it to make a rainbow shine on a tree. Naruto walked over to it and pulled out a golden coin. "Oh, Iris, goddess of the rainbow, please accept my offering," Naruto said as he flipped the golden coin into the rainbow, which rippled, shocking everyone. "May I see the camp of Artemis, Artemis, goddess of the hunt," Naruto said into it as the rainbow changed to the visage of a woman that Jiraiya knew well. She was a fair-skinned, slender woman of feminine build with silver-violet eyes and long crimson hair tied back into a ponytail. She wore a white shirt with an open silver jacket, black form-fitting pants that reached her calf, and black boots. But she was not looking at them. She was sitting at a campsite with girls walking around wearing the same clothes. "Kushina," Jiraiya said as the woman turned to face them. "Naruto, Jiraiya, what are you?" she asked them before seeing that her son did not have a headband on. "What happened?" she asked him. "I was banished from Konoha for bringing back their Uchiha," Naruto said as Kushina narrowed her silver-violet eyes. "Kushina, how are you alive?" Jiraiya asked her as Kushina looked at him gently. "Jiraiya, it's Artemis," Artemis said before the words that her son had told her worked their way into her head. "I'm sorry Konoha did what?" she asked with a growl that did not sound human as the girls behind her stopped what they were doing. "I was banished from Konoha for bringing back Sasuke Uchiha, who was trying to turn traitor and technically killed me 3 times, Naruto said with a straight face as Artemis's face twisted into anger. "They will not be safe under the moon," she growled. Her eyes flashed, and she breathed to calm herself down before looking at her son. "So what do you plan on doing?" she asked him. "I was going to make a village," Naruto said as the connection started to get fuzzy, so he pulled out another golden coin. But Artemis held up her hand, was enveloped by a silver light, and teleported to where her son was. "Make a village, you say," she said as Naruto nodded. "I see, then why not make it on our clan's homeland?" she told her son, who looked confused. "The land of whirlpools," Naruto said as Artemis nodded. Kimimaro and Tayuya walked over, and Jiraiya looked shell-shocked. "And you two are?" Artemis asked them. "I am Kimimaro Kagaya, the last of the Kagaya clan," Kimimaro said as he bowed her to the goddess. "Tayuya, no last name," she said as she bowed to the goddess. Jiraiya shooed his head before going over. "How?" was all he could say. "I was punished because one of my hunters did something that I did not allow, but she did it anyway, so I was put in a mortal body," Artemis told him. Jiraiya nodded before Artemis turned to her son. "And I think that you should build up on the remains from Uzushio to make a Uzukage," she told him. Naruto nodded as Jiraiya gained a look. He brought his hand up to his chin before pulling out a scroll, opening it, looking into it, and then sealing something. Artemis looked over before seeing what the sage had in his hands. "Is that the scroll of seals?" she asked him. Jiraiya nodded. "Yes, I took it with us, as most of these jutsu belong to the Uzumaki clan, and so it belongs to Naruto," he told her as he looked through the scroll before seeing it coming in it. "And I was right, sensei, you smart bastard," he said before laying the scroll down as everyone looked at him. "What is it, Arrow Sennin?" Naruto said as Artemis snorted at the nickname. Jiraiya opened his mouth, but Kimimaro turned to Naruto. "Why do you call him that, Naruto-sama?" he asked. "Do you know the books Icha Icha?" Naruto said as Tayuya nodded with a twitch above her eye. Still, Kimimaro shook his head. "Well, I have not read those books, but when I was in Konoha, I saw him peeping on women in the bathhouse," Naruto told them as they looked over to the sage. "You never change, do you?" Artemis said with a smile. "What does that have to do with Icha Icha?" Tayuya asked him as both Naruto and Artemis pointed at him. "What did he make that perverted crap?" she asked as both mother and son nodded while Jiraiya's eye twitched. I see, she said as she looked at Jiraiya with narrowed eyes. Anyway, Jiraiya said as he brushed Tayuya's look away before pointing to the scroll. Within Konoha, they have a wood release user within the Anbu, and when he told me that, I went and told Tsunade, and when she came back, she told me that it was dealt with and I did not think that she meant by this, he said as he pointed into the scroll at one of the jutsu that was written down. Mokutan. Shichuka no Jutsu, Kimimaro read before looking at the sage. But none of us have wood release, he said to the sage. You would generally be correct in that statement, but you forget that Naruto has the strongest dojutsu known to man, the Rinnegan, and if when I trained with the other person who had the Rinnegan and the two of us think that it's a Kekkei Mora not a Kekkei Genkei. Jiraiya told the bone user before pointing at Naruto's eyes. It is known that the Rinnegan allows the user to do a multitude of things such as grant access to the 5 basic natures, and if I'm right Naruto can use wood release by mixing water release with earth release, he said as Naruto looked confused. How do I make wood release then, he asked him. If I remember it right, then it's a 4:6 ratio of water release with earth release, Jiraiya told Naruto, who raised a brow. We've only just started with fire release training, Naruto told the sage, who nodded. I know, but let's see if we can make a start with it first, he told the blonde. Right, Naruto said as he closed his eyes, and Artemis looked up into the sky as the crescent moon became full. He felt the world around him before he felt the ground at his feet as 2 elemental chakras mixed within him, and as they mixed, a picture formed in his mind. And the picture was of a wooden snake hissing at him. Naruto started to form the snake seal as the grass around Naruto's feet began to grow at his feet. You can stop now, Jiraiya told him as Naruto opened his eyes. We can practice this later, but it's a good start, he told his student before the goddess looked at Jiraiya. Do you have the scrolls that Minato and I left for Naruto? She asked him. Jiraiya nodded and handed her 2 scrolls, giving them to her son. One scroll was white with red flame-like markings around the border of the scroll, while the other was black with red spirals dotted around. These scrolls hold everything that your father and I knew and things that we were going to make. This one holds all your father's things, Artemis said as she held up the white scroll before holding up the black one. This one holds all of my things, including everything from your grandparents, she told him as Naruto looked at them. Wait, you mean an Asachi, the creation of Hikaru Uzumaki the Shiroku? Naruto asked his mother, who nodded. So he took both scrolls into his hands before opening the black scroll. He found a seal with the word sword and pumped his chakra into it as a plume of smoke formed above the seal. When the smoke disappeared, it revealed a prosocline stature that looked at Naruto before Artemis looked at Naruto. Naruto, push your chakra like you're making a jutsu, she told her son. Naruto held out his hand and knelt and offered Naruto its hand, and Naruto sent his chakra into it as it was encased with an orb of chakra before it turned into a katana. A black straight blade with a red flame like Hammond pattern. The katana handle is wrapped in crimson cords and black cloth. The Tsuba of Naruto's Zanpakuto is a disc with the Uzumaki clan crest on the Tsuba. This was the why people wanted to be rid of Uzushio, Artemis said as Naruto looked the sword over. What its name? Kimimaro said asked the blonde. I don't know, Naruto said as he heard a whisper in his ear. And I don't think I will for a while, Naruto said as he looked at the sword. Alright, Tayuya said, confused before the 5 talked about what would happen before Artemis returned to her hunters, and Naruto started to prepare the deer and rabbits he brought to the camp. His sword was by his stuff as he used a kunai to start skinning the deer. Tayuya looked through a scroll Jiraiya had given her while Kimimaro gathered wood. So what's going to happen next? Tayuya asked the sage, who looked over at her. I mean, we're heading to the former land of the Uzumaki and their former village, Uzushio, but a village needs more than that, she said as Jiraiya nodded. A village needs clans, and as of this moment, we have 2 clans, Naruto said as he finished skinning the deer. We have the Uzumaki and the Kagaya clans, he told them as Kimimaro returned and looked at Naruto. You would let me remake my clan, he asked the demigod. Yes, and if I'm right, many clans from Kiri have left because of the purges, Naruto said as Jiraiya gained a look. I have an idea, he said, drawing looks from everyone. How would you 3 be alright if we start taking out the Akatsuki? Jiraiya said as Naruto narrowed his eyes while Tayuya and Kimimaro looked confused. Who are the Akatsuki? Tayuya asked him. Jiraiya looked at her as he pulled out another scroll and unrolled it. The others looked at it, and Naruto gained a twitch above his left eye. I have 2 spies within the Akatsuki, and they have told me that they are gathering the Biju and sealing them within a statue, he told them, but then Naruto felt something dark. It was the Kyuubi. What did the Toad Man just say? Naruto heard it say. The Kyuubi wants you to repeat that, Naruto said as he shook his head, and the sage did so with a raised brow as both Tayuya and Kimimaro looked at Naruto. This group is playing with forces beyond their control, the Kyuubi growled to Naruto. Brat, let me take control of a cage bunshin so I can tell you what this group is planning as it is not good, they said as Naruto relayed this to Jiraiya who nodded and summoned a clone. The clone looked at the 4 before its hair also grew longer and spikier. The whisker-like marks on his cheeks widened and thickened, and the rippled blue eyes turned crimson with a slit as it looked at them. As I told the brat, this group is playing with forces beyond their control and is trying to call something that would destroy the world, Kyuubi told them as they looked at the clone in shock. What are they doing? Tayuya asked him in fear. The statue that they are using, the thing that they want seal my siblings and I are in, is called the Gedo Mazo, and it is the husk of something that my father made when he created from his mother, who is the mother of all chakra and some would say the goddess of chakra. Kyuubi said as fears started to sink into the others, and she was turning into a being called the Jubi, but it can only be reborn if only a portion of the chakra is given over, but the form it could take is unknown. But right now which of my sibling do they plan to get first? The Biju asked as they looking over to the sage. From what my spies tell me, they are going to move on the Yonbi and the Gobi first as they are the ones that are the easiest to get to, Jiraiya said as Naruto looked at him. Then the first mission of Uzu is to stop the Akatsuki and make sure that the Jubi stays in myth, Naruto said as the Kyuubi looked at him and saw a visage of someone over Naruto. It was of its father, the Sage of 6 Paths. He unknowingly sent out a wave of energy that made the world stand still around them as Jiraiya nodded. Then we head for Iwa in the morning, and I'll inform my spies that it's time for them to strike, Jiraiya said. He also saw a visage of Naruto, which was of his student and Naruto's father, Minato Namikaze. The clone holding the Kyuubi was dispelled as Naruto turned to the animals he was butchering. I'll make food, then we'll get some sleep, Naruto said as he walked back over to the deer and rabbits. Tayuya and Kimimaro looked at Naruto in shock, but both felt empowered by him, so Kimimaro turned to Jiraiya. What was that? He asked the man. The Hao Menzen, only those that have the power of Haoshoku Haki have that power, and it's them telling the world what is going on, Jiraiya said with a smile. It has been some years since I felt this, he said with a gentle smile as both Tayuya and Kimimaro turned to Naruto who was cutting away at the deer. Once Naruto was done portioning up the food, Naruto cooked it all in a pot with some water that was nearby before they all ate and got ready to head out in the morning. 2 days later, Land of Earth. The small team of 4 moved into the Land of Earth as they walked to the meeting point where they would find Jiraiya's spies. They found the 2 waiting for them as they approached the waiting point. The first was a relatively tall man of fair complexion who had black eyes, under which were long, pronounced tiered troughs and had jet black hair that was pulled back in a low ponytail, and his face was framed with center-parted bangs that extended to his chin. The ponytail and bangs grew longer over the years. The next was a very tall, muscular shinobi with a distinctive shark-like appearance. He had pale, blue-gray skin with small, round, white eyes, 3 sets of curved facial markings under his eyes, gills on his shoulders, and sharp triangular teeth. He styled his blue hair like a shark fin. They both wore long, black cloaks with red clouds, a red interior, a chin-high collar, hand-dark purple nail polish, and dark blue pants, and both had a ring on the right ring finger. On the back of the man with the shark-like appearance was a large sword, roughly as tall as a full-grown man, wrapped in bandages. Itachi Uchiha is one of your spies, Naruto asked the sage as the 4 approached the 2 men. That's right, as they both had reasons why for joining the Akatsuki to spy for their village, but with how the Uzukage killed the one that Kisame worked for, Itachi came to me, and he and I started to work together to take them down, Jiraiya said as they turned to them. Jiraiya-sama, you called for me? The man with black eyes asked him, as did the man known as Itachi Uchiha. Yes, Itachi, but it's not good, Jiraiya said as both men looked over at him, and their eyes shot wide with the information he gave them about what the Kyuubi had given them. I see this is most troubling, Itachi said as Kisame nodded. And you are sure about this information? He asked the blonde, who nodded. The Yonbi is not that form here. He could talk with him. Go from there, Kisame said as he pointed his thumb behind him. The 4 who joined them nodded, and the 6 moved out. But they failed to see something pop out of the ground. It looked like a carrier plant with a body that was half white and half black. It looked at the 6 in the distance before sinking back into the earth. Border of Land of Fire and Land of Rice Fields. Sasuke Uchiha, who had escaped Konoha and had fled once more, was walking across the border once more as a man waited for him. He had a snake-like appearance, so he had ashen skin, golden eyes with slit pupils, purple markings around his eyes, fang-like teeth with pronounced cheekbones, and straight waist-length black hair with some locks covering and framing his face or to his shoulders. He wears it in a ponytail, allowing 2 locks to frame the sides of his face. He wore plain gray garbs with a black polo and pants underneath, a thick purple rope belt tied in a large knot behind his back, blue tomo-shaped earrings, and shinobi sandals with bandages around his calves. Sorry for being late, Orochimaru, the man said as he walked up to Sasuke. Hello, Sasuke. I'm sure that you're sorry for the hold-up, Orochimaru said as he walked over to the Uchiha, who smiled and held out a scroll. Oh, what is this? He asked the boy. Someone with the name of Shin Uchiha wanted me to bring him to you, so he taught me how to seal, and I sealed him in this scroll, and with it, I have a plan, Sasuke said as the man gained a wicked smile. Oh, go on, he said to Sasuke. You teach me everything so I can kill my brother and help Shin make an army of clones for him to remake the Uchiha clan. And in return, you can have one of the clones to have the Sharingan, Sasuke said as the man's smile became sinister. Oh, Sasuke, that is a brilliant plan, and I am ashamed that I did not think about it, he said as he turned around and started leading Sasuke into the land of rice fields. The 2 approached an extensive cave system with a large metal door symbolizing a musical note. So, are you ready to become an auto ninja, my dear Sasuke? Orochimaru asked the boy, who activated his Sharingan. I am, Sasuke said as the 2 walked in. As they entered, a large genjutsu was placed over the opening as Konoha Anbu laned looking around, having just missed the Uchiha. Rabbit, monkey, let's keep going, Anbu said in a tiger-masked voice as they moved on. The group of 6 embarked on a daunting journey, crossing the unforgiving, barren lands of the Land of Earth, a harsh terrain that tested their resolve. Their destination? The Land of Earth, known for its treacherous landscapes and powerful shinobi, is home to the Yonbi Jinchuriki, the host of the 4 Tails. Jiraiya-sama, are you sure that joining Naruto and making another village is a good thing to do? Itachi asked the man. I do, the Toad Sage said as they moved across the land. I see a spark within Naruto that I've only seen in one other person, Hashirama, the Shodem Hokage. I only met the man about 5 times before he died, but I see the same spark that he had within Naruto. Jiraiya's voice was filled with unwavering belief. This contagious belief spread to the Uchiha, who looked over to Naruto. I did not know that you met the Shadima, Itachi said in genuine surprise, his curiosity piqued. He looked at the sage, his eyes reflecting his intense interest. Like I said, I only met the man 5 times, the last of which was when I joined the academy, but if both he and Naruto met they could be 2 pieces of pod. Jiraiya told him before they spotted a wooden hut that was close by. But then a man walked out of the hut. He had red hair, a mustache, and a beard that tapered off to a point. A prominent black armor ran across his cheeks and the bridge of his nose. He wore a long-sleeved magenta kimono shirt and pants, a mesh armor shirt and fitted black suit underneath, and calf-length sandals. His imposing figure and intense gaze made it clear that he was not to be underestimated. So, what are you lot doing here? The man asked as he walked out and prepared for a fight. We're not here for a fight, Yotan no Roshi, Kisame said as Roshi looked over to the shark man. And then you're here because, he asked. A warning from one Jinchuriki to another, Naruto said as he walked forward. Both of them looked at each other before Roshi walked up to Naruto. And that warning is? He asked the blonde. There is a group using the Gedo Mazo to bring back something called the Jubi, Naruto told him, his voice grave. This group, known as the Akatsuki, is a dangerous organization with a plan to gather all 9 Biju and use the Gedo Mazo to seal the beasts within it. We must stop them. Roshi, did he say the Gedo Mazo and Jubi? The Yonbi asked his Jinchuriki. Yes, why? Roshi asked his tailed beast. Then we must hear his warning, as it is dire, the Yonbi told him as Roshi nodded. Alright then, what information do you have? He asked. Naruto looked over to Jiraiya, who nodded and walked up. The group is called the Akatsuki, and they have a plan to gather all 9 Biju and use the Gedo Mazo to seal the beasts within it, he said as Roshi rubbed his chin and did not like what he was hearing. I see, who is in this group? He asked the sage. Deidara, the mad bomber of Iwa, Hidan, the immortal butcher, me along with Kisame here are acting as spies for Jiraiya-sama. Goshin no Kakazu, Orochimaru, Akasuna no Sasori, Pain, the current leader of AIM, an unknown woman who can use paper, another Uchiha that is using the name of Madara, and a creature called Zetsu. Itachi told the man as Roshi looked at him before nodding, and they had planned to send 2 people after you, as both Kisame and I have left the organization. I do not know who they will send after you, he informed the man. White traitor. It's me and my man, Sasori, a voice from high above them said as everyone turned to see a blond man standing on a giant clay bird. The first was a man with slanted blue eyes and long golden blonde hair, which he wore drawn into a half ponytail with the rest hanging freely. His bang was hanging over his left eye. He wore the same cloak as Kisame and Itachi. The other did not look like a man, as it was hunched over. Deidara, it seems you have fallen far, Roshi told the man as the blonde had his bird fly down and land as both men got off it. Oh, I'm sorry sensei, but I think that this is the better path for me to show the world my art, Deidara said as he walked up. And Itachi, Kisame, the 2 of you will make fine puppets for me when we're done with you, the hunched man said. Who's the freak? Tayuya asked as she pulled out her flout. That would be Sasori, Itachi told her as they prepared to fight. Tayuya, Kimimaro, if you need to use your curse marks, but use them as a last resort, Naruto said as he drew his sword. Understood Naruto-sama, Kimimaro said as he pulled out a bone sword. Got it, Tayuya said as she prepared to perform a genjutsu. Now this is a fine mess you're in, Itachi, a female voice said. Itachi's eyes shot wide as he looked around before he spotted a woman walking out of the forest. She had long brown hair with bangs framing her face, onyx eyes, and a mole under her right eye. She wore a dark blue kimono-style blouse with vertical lines, tied with a dark red obi around her waist, baggy blue pants, a shuriken oscillator on her right leg, and black sandals. How? Itachi asked her as she looked at him. When you cast your genjutsu on me it awoke my Mangekyo Sharingan that broke out of your Tsukuyomi, the woman said to him as Itachi nodded before they looked at the Akatsuki members with narrowed eyes. They then shot forward, kunai at the ready, as the woman's and Itachi's eyes turned to the Sharingan. Who is she? Naruto asked as he got ready to fight. No clue, Kisame said as both Itachi and the women went after Sasori. And then, with their kunai, they cut off the head of the man. Or they think they did, as someone jumped out from within the body. So you show yourself, Sasori, Itachi said as he turned to a red-haired teen who turned to him. Bansho Tenin, Naruto called out as he pulled Deidara off his feet and pulled him toward the blonde. What the? Deidara called out as he was pulled towards Naruto. Kisame appeared in front of him with his sword ready before swinging it like a bat, hitting Deidara away from him as blue spikes formed out of the sword and dug into the former Iwa ninja. Naruto was about to join Kisame on the attack, but Jiraiya touched the boy's shoulder. I would not do that, just not yet, anyway, he said as Naruto looked at him along with Tayuya and Kimimaro. Why not? He asked the man. They are both of the level of Kakashi. Don't go until you think that you can land a hit, Jiraiya said as Naruto turned his eyes back to the battlefield and saw that Sasori had called out another puppet that looked like a person while Deidara was pulling something out of his pocket. You want to be a cage, so this is what it means, he said. Naruto nodded as he saw the blonde Akatsuki member pull out clay balls. The veins around his eyes bulged as he looked at the balls. He has explosion release and with those clay balls he animates them so that they can attack in his behalf, the blonde said as Deidara's eyes shot wide while Roshi narrowed his eyes. So you stole the kinjutsu of Iwa, he said as Deidara rolled his eyes. Oh, so what? The Tsuchikage did not recognize my art, so I decided to show him our greatest ninjutsu, Deidara said as he tossed the balls out. They turned into spiders and flew into the air. And with the speed of a hunter, Naruto threw kunai, which was infused with lightning-release chakra, and they hit the spiders before they fell to the floor inactive. "Good work," Kisame said, running towards Deidara with his sword ready. "What? How did you?" he cried as the shark man moved in on Deidara, raising his sword before bringing it down onto the former Iwa ninja's shoulder. "That was done well, as the technique that he is using allows him to gather both explosion release and earth release into the clay," Roshi told Naruto, who looked at the man. "And you used your lightning release to nullify them with just that one move," he added as Jiraiya smiled. "So you were listening," he told the Uzumaki. "I have to every now and then," Naruto said with a smile before he turned to look at Deidara, who was dodging Kisami's swings. He then looked over to see that Sasori had released dark grayish sand from the upper he was using. "Tayuya. We need to make sure that he is kept off balance before you use that on him. Kimimaro, I'm going to need to lend support fire," he told the two with him as they nodded. "Understood," they both said as they got ready. "He's taken control and not wasting his orders," Itachi thought as he jumped out of the way of the sand. "So the kid can lead. I wonder what Itachi is going to do now that he knows I'm alive," the woman thought as both of them moved out of the way of the sand. When an opening was found, Tayuya started going through hands sealed before she called out, "Kaden. Hosenka no Jutsu," and released pellets of flame from her mouth. While Kimimaro held his hand out as bone pellets shot out and flew at Deidara. "Over with Itachi and this woman and why both moved away. So this is the Sandine case cage," Itachi said as he looked at the puppet. "And is this your skills, the human puppet?" he asked the man. "That's right. First, I remove the body's organs, then I clean and drain away the blood, then I add preservatives to make sure the body will not decay, and finally, I add weapons and defenses to it," he told Itachi, who raised a brow while the woman looked disgusted. "And with some of these puppets, I can use their skills, just like the iron sand of the Sandane case cage," Sasori explained to Itachi. "I see, then I know what I have to do to put the man to rest," Itachi said as he closed his eyes before opening them once more to show that his Sharingan had changed to a three-bladed pinwheel. "So that's the famed Uchiha Mangekyo Sharingan. I have to say that it looks nice, but," Sasori said before black flames formed around the puppet he was using, and the man jumped away. "What did you do?" he screamed at Itachi, who looked at the puppet user as the iron sand fell unmoving. "Amaterasu, flames that do not go out unless I wish them so," Itachi told Sasori, who looked murderous at the man. "These flames can be called out only by me. Well, at this moment anyway," he said Sasori as the puppet of the Sandane case cage burned away. "Now he can truly rest now," the woman next to Itachi said, as Sasori did not look happy. He looked at both his opponents before sighing. "I guess it can't be helped," he said as he removed his cloak and showed his body. It was that of a puppet. "So you did this to yourself as well?" the woman asked as Sasori looked at her. "Yes, and I did not think I would be using it on you, but here we are," he said as a long cable slithered out of his chest and two blade-like wings formed from his back. "It really has been a while since I've had to use myself," Sasori told them as he started to look deranged along with a twisted smile on his face. He then jumped at them with his hands out as two nozzles popped out, and a scroll on his back disappeared. And then, water shot out of his eyes, cutting into the ground. "Can you use your Amaterasu on him?" the woman asked Itachi, but the man shook his head at her. "No, it's taxing on my eyes, and we needed to get rid of that puppet," he said as he met eyes with the Toad Sage, who nodded before speaking with Naruto and the holder of the Yanbi. "I see what you're planning," Sasori said as he stopped the water, and another scroll disappeared. This time, a burst of flames came from the nozzles. "And here I thought that only Kakazu had control over multiple elements," Itachi said as Sasori let out an insane laugh. But they did not know they were being watched from afar by a white and black creature with green hair and a Venus flytrap popping from its shoulders dressed in the Akatsuki cloak. "So it seems that Itachi and Kisame have turned against us," the white half said as someone stepped out of the shadows. It was a man with an orange spiral mask with one eye hole. "So it seems," the man said as he looked at the fight, "and it seems that Kyuubi has gained the Rinnegan," he added. "That's right, but there is more to it. I feel as if something is not right," the black half said as the man narrowed his eyes at the fight. He then turned his head towards the woman fighting Sasori with Itachi. "And here I thought that he killed them all," he said as the creature nodded. "He did, but she must have gained a Mangekyo ability like your Kamui," the white half of the creature said as the man looked at the fight. He then said that Roshi and Jiraiya joined the fight, with the sage helping the two Uchiha. They watched as Roshi ran towards Deidara with a fist of molten rock while Kisame was tearing into the blonde. At the same time, Sasori was losing parts of his body to his three opponents. "It would seem that we are about to lose two members," the man said before disappearing into a wormhole as the creature sank into the floor. Tayuya started to play her flute as Deidara froze in place. "Hey, how did you catch me in a genjutsu?" he asked the haired girl. She said nothing as she played another note on the flute. Deidara turned around and started to run at Sasori. "Why are you attacking me?" his partner asked him as both Itachi and the Uchiha woman joined back up with the others. "That is an impressive genjutsu," Itachi said to Tayuya, who nodded and continued playing her flute. The first genjutsu she performed was paralyzing flute genjutsu before she moved on to another one, the female Uchiha said as Itachi nodded at her. "Yes, and it is like she's controlling him," Itachi said with a nod. "She's using her Mateki, Genbu Sokyoku, to control him like she does with her Doki, but with her flute sending out small point pluses of chakra so that he cannot flush this out of his system," Naruto said as lines formed over Tayuya as she looked at Deidara. "And with using her curse seal, she can make herself stronger and her chakra more potent in subduing him," he said as both Uchiha looked amazed before looking over to the redhead. Naruto narrowed his eyes before looking over to Roshi. "Do you know how much he has on his head?" Naruto asked as he pointed to Deidara. But it was Kisame who answered him. "He is the lowest one in the Akatsuki at 279,009,000 ryo, he said as Naruto nodded before doing some math in his head. "Right, if we take his bounty, that would mean we would have enough to build a wall around the village," Naruto said as Kisame looked at him. "I have both the Uzumaki funds, my own, and the funds from my father, and with his bounty, we can build a wall around the village," the blonde told him. "Wait, you're making a village?" Roshi asked the blonde. "Were you going to ask me to join?" he asked Naruto, who nodded. "Yes and no, if you would have said yes, we would have helped you pack up, but if you said no, we would have left with our warning about the Akatsuki," Naruto told him as the older Jinchuriki looked at the younger before smiling. "I say go for it, as it can help your mind by fixing and building something new," the Yanbi told his Jinchuriki. "You're right," Roshi told the ape within him before he looked at Naruto and saw someone he did not think he would see again. "The Yondaime Hokage, so you had a son, and I believe that it was with that girl, and that makes him an Uzumaki," he thought before he gained a smile. "I like you, kid, and you're honest," he said to Naruto as he returned to the two Akatsuki members fighting. "I'll join you, as it would be an excellent way to find a place for myself," Roshi told the young blonde. Naruto nodded at him and then watched as Roshi held out his chakra and started forming in front of it, and a ball formed. "So you're going to join the kid, are you?" the Yanbi asked his host. "Yes, as it will both keep me safe from Iwa and these jackasses and I get to live a life without hate and fix all the wrongs that I committed during the war to the kid's clan," Roshi told his beast. "Kid," he told Naruto, who turned to him again. "Watch closely, as you'll be able to use this one day," Roshi informed Naruto as a ball of chakra turned dark purple with the red chakra added. When the orb of chakra was at the point where he liked it, he turned to Tayuya. "You can stop your genjutsu," he told her as she stopped playing the flute. "Bijudama," Roshi called out as the ball shot forward, and both members of the Akatsuki turned just in time as the ball reached them. "Oh shit!" Sasori yelled out as the two jumped out of the way of the ball before it exploded. Naruto looked at Sasori before he got an idea and dropped a kunai as everyone looked at him. As the blonde felt, something was within his eyes. The next moment, Sasori was where the kunai was, and Naruto plunged his sword into something within the puppet's chest. And then what filled the air was the sound of something stabbing through flesh and muscle. "How did you know?" Sasori asked as he looked at Naruto, and Itachi walked over to the downed Deidara. A hunter always knows a weak point of their prey. They find him, and when their animal is distracted, they go for the kill, Naruto told him, as Sasori smiled at Naruto. "I see, then I have some information for you all," Sasori said as everyone looked down at him. "Orochimaru now has Sasuke Uchiha, and he has gained both of your DNA. He thinks that with it, he can clone the two of you and the other team members to rebuild, as that is what my spy had told me," he told them as his eyes started to droop and get heavy. Naruto looked at the former Auto ninja and saw that Kimimaro looked depressed, while Tayuya did not look like she cared. Is there anything else? Naruto asked the puppet man. Yes, can you do one thing for me? He asked the blonde, who looked down at him. I wish for this body to go to someone who had the true master of the Red Sands puppets and for me to live on with them, Sasori told Naruto, who nodded. That is doable, he said as Sasori passed on. Everyone then turned to Deidara, who was being dragged over to them. Hey, watch it you bastard, he said as he struggled. I used a seal to stop him molding chakra, Itachi said as the woman knelt to look Deidara in the eye. Who the hell are you? He asked her. Izumi Uchiha, fiancé of Itachi Uchiha, she told him as Naruto looked at the man who nodded. She is, he told them as they looked surprised before they looked back down at Deidara. What are going to do with me? The Akatsuki member asked the group. Turn you over to Iwa, Naruto said with a smile. Itachi and Kimimaro are going to go with me and Jiraiya-sensei so that we can get the bounty on his head and, if needs be, save the other Jinchuriki here. I see, what about the rest of us? Tayuya asked her new boss. Simple, help Roshi pack his things, and keep an eye out, he told them as they nodded. Got ya, and I have to ask, are we going to be head straight to Suna, after this or are we going to make our way to the land of water or lightning next? Kisame asked the blonde. Suna, as we can talk with the person in charge. Drop off Sasori's body, and the iron sand, get his bounty and warn them about what is going on with the Akatsuki, Naruto told Kisame, then after that, we'll head to the land of whirlpools and we'll make a base of operations before you make more plans, he added. Sounds like a plan, he said as Roshi nodded. And so the four headed towards Iwa and headed off with their prisoner. 3 hours later, Iwa. So this is what Iwa looks like, Itachi said as he looked at the village before them, which looked like a mountain range. The then four walked up to the gate of Iwa before 2 guards came out and walked up to them. What are Konoha ninja doing here? One of them asked the 4 of them. Me and Naruto Uzumaki are former Konoha ninja as of 3 days ago, Jiraiya said as the man looked at him with a narrowed look before he looked over to Itachi and Kimimaro. I see, then why are you here? He asked them. Bounty of this one, Naruto said as he pointed behind him. Kimimaro and Itachi lifted Deidara, who was knocked out of what Naruto had done to him. The guards looked shocked before they signaled down an Anbu, who looked at them. Can you take these to the Tsuchikage? I think he would want to see this, he said as the Anbu looked at the bound Akatsuki member, nodded, and led them inside. And so the 4 were given a look around Iwa with the buildings and how it was designed. So this is Iwa, Naruto muttered as he looked around. This is my first time in another village, the Anbu asked Naruto, who nodded. I see, Iwa is a village that spars like the ground around us. We make sure we use what we trained in with the other lands, she told Naruto. Amazing, he said as they entered the Tsuchikage's building. After a few minutes, they reached the door to the Tsuchikage's office, and the Anbu knocked on it. Come in, a voice called out as the group was led in. They found a very short, old man with a triangular beard, a mustache with angular corners, a big red nose and thick eyebrows. The top of his head was completely bald, although he had long white hair on the lower half, styled in a traditional Chanmage haircut, the back of which was tied with a yellow ribbon into a top knot. The Tsuchikage wore a split-apart green coat divided into 4 sections with yellow trimmings and a red collar. Underneath, he wore the traditional Iwagakure outfit consistent with a light green version of Iwagakure's flak jacket and mesh armor. So what are you doing here? The Kage asked. Itachi and Kimimaro walked forward and put down their captive. So you've finally been caught, have you? He said. Deidara woke up and looked around before spotting the Tsuchikage. Hey there old man Onoki, how's life been? Deidara asked the man. Better than it has been treating you, you traitor, he said with narrowed eyes while Deidara scoffed at him. Oh please, you have grown senile if you think that, Deidara said while Onoki just looked at him before moving his eyes over to the former Konoha ninja and former Auto ninja. Thank you for bringing him here, and with that we'll bring out his bounty for you and even the price for the kinjutsu that he stole, Onoki said to them. You can keep the price for the kinjutsu, Naruto said as the 3 with him looked at him in confusion. I know that you know that I have both recruited Roshi and sought to recruit the Gobi Jinchuriki as well, so I know have some men are, he said as Jiraiya's eyes shot wide while Itachi's narrowed at Naruto. At the same time, Kimimaro showed nothing, but he was also surprised. But Onoki smiled at Naruto. Indeed, I did know that Roshi had joined you, and as for Han, Are you saying that you would trade the kinjutsu that Deidara stole in exchange for Han? He asked Naruto, who nodded, done. But can I ask why you are gathering the Jinchuriki? Onoki asked them, so they gave the information as the man did not like what he heard. Are you sure that this information you have gathered is accurate? He asked the four, as Deidara hoped it was also false. Yes, our Sours is a Kurt, he said as Onoki folded his hands on his desk. I see, and you plan to start a village on your clan's old grounds? He asked Naruto, who nodded. Yes, the demigod said as Onoki turned to the Anbu with them. Go and get my granddaughter and Han, the Tsuchikage ordered as the Anbu disappeared. Why are you call on your granddaughter? Kimimaro asked as he looked at the man. Politically speaking, you will need allies and I am hoping that I can start to fix the mistake that I made when Lord Mu was in charge of the village when he went after your clan. Onoki told the boy, who nodded. So a political marriage between the person to become the Uzukage and your granddaughter, Itachi said as the Kage nodded. That's right, but I know you need to build your village first, so when you send a letter we'll send my granddaughter, and with Han. On his way you can meet her as well, Onoki explained to them as they nodded at him. Talks developed with Naruto saying that fruit and vegetables would be sent to Iwahole. Onoki was saying that he would send builders to aid in making the homes once Naruto had made them with wood release. But before more could be said, a knock came on the door, and two people walked in with the king's call. The first was a very tall man who was heavily armored. He had light brown eyes and was eyebrowless, and his armor extended to the bottom half of his face, covering it up. Underneath the armor covering the bottom half of his face, he wore a white cloth covering both sides of his face and the top of his head. Aside from his red armor, he also wore a red kasa over the white cloth, which seemed to be composed of the same material as his armor. He wore his Iwagakure forehead protector on a black cloth, and over his armor, he wore a black gi, with the sleeves seemingly torn off and black gloves. He also wore what seems to be a bronze-colored ring around his neck, which he wore over his red armor. Also, the armor covering his arms, legs and torso was plated. The other was a girl a little older than Naruto with short, black hair and distinctly black eyes accentuated by eyelashes running upwards at the corners. She wears the standard attire of the Iwa Nin, consisting of a red uniform with her right sleeve missing and a lapel over her right leg, fishnet tights, and a skirt over them. She also wears regular shinobi sandals and a pair of gloves. Thank you both for coming here, Onoki said to them as they looked at their cage. Han, I know you dislike the village for what it has done to you, he said as the man in the armor looked away. Yes, but I must serve or death is next, he said as his cage sighed. Well, that is luckily no longer a need, as you are being relieved of duty to Iwa and age joining a newly formed village, he told the gobi holder, who looked confused before looking over to Naruto and the others. I see I'm joining them then, Han asked as Onoki nodded, so Han removed his headband and handed it over. Thank you for your years of service, Onoki told Han as the group +1 was handed a money case and escorted out of the building and village. The girl watched this happen before she turned to her grandfather. What is happening? She asked him. I am correcting a wrong that I once made, and in doing so, building a bridge, he said as he looked at her. Kuritsuchi, that young man that was in here, what did you think of him? Onoki asked her. Why? She asked her grandfather. It's because the old man is going to marry you off to him, Deidara said as both turned to him. I legitimately forgot about you for a second, Onoki told him plainly before his eyes turned cold. So, your group planned to create something that would have ended the world, he said to the bound man. Hey, I did not know that was the plan, Deidara said, trying to defend himself. But Onoki was having none of it, so he snapped his fingers as an Anbu appeared behind Deidara and cut the man's head off. Was that really necessary? Kuritsuchi asked him as the man nodded. Yes, and with his group making something that would have ended the world, I cannot risk his pulling something that could get him free, Onoki said before he turned back to Kuritsuchi, but he was somewhat right. I am making a marriage between the two of you so that we know that 3 Biju will not be used against us, he told her as she sighed. Okay, but then what do I do? Be the perfect wife to him. I'm only one woman, she said as her grandfather nodded. You are, and he is going to need to rebuild his clan to bring them back, and in doing so he will need to marry multiple women, so you need to be at least making sure that Iwa does not become a target, Onoki told her as she nodded. I understand, she said with a nod. With Naruto. The group of 5 made their way to the gates of Iwa once more, and people looked at Han, confused. So where is this new village going to be made? He asked Naruto. The land of whirlpools, he answered. I see, are we heading straight there or do we have to go to another place first? Han asked him. The latter, as we need to head to Suna to get another bounty from Suna for Sasori and inform them of the Akatsuki as well before he heads over and starts the building of the village, Kimimaro said, and Han nodded. So they made their way over to where the others were, and when they reached them, they found Kisame teaching Tayuya some water release jutsu. And that is how you form the water within your stomach to send it out, Kisame said as the girl nodded before they spotted the others. So to Suna, he asked as the others nodded and started walking. 4 days later, Land of Wind. The group of 9 slowly moved across the desert sand before they spotted the village. I still have no idea how people can live out here, Kisame said as he chugged water. When they reached the gates, they were instantly led to the case cage building, where the standing case cage awaited them. It was Gaara's sensei. Good afternoon all. Why are you all here? He asked the group. Well, Baki, we're here for 2 things. One of them is a bounty that we come across along with a gift and warning, Jiraiya said as he released Sasori's body. I see, so he's been caught. But why does? Baki started to say as Itachi interrupted him. He turned himself into a puppet, he said as Baki sighed. He had a final wish for someone who uses the Red Sands puppet so that his skills will live on through the work of the puppet, Itachi said as Baki nodded. That makes sense as, Baki said as Asuna Anbu abbered next to him. Get my genin team here, so that Konkoro can get used to his new puppet, he told them as the Anbu nodded and moved out. And what is this warning that you need to give? Baki asked them, and Naruto told him as the man looked shaken. Are they all that strong? He asked, thinking about Sasori. No, Sasori and his former partner was the weakest members of the group, with both me and Kisame being higher than them, but the team in the middle of us was of 2 immortals that are hard to take down because of that fact, Itachi said with Kisame nodding along. I see, then what is it that you plan to do? Baki asked them. Make a village and Iwa to gifting their Jinchuriki, and we were going to do the same here, and with me no longer within Konoha. The strongest village no longer has their weapon, and Iwa. Naruto was saying as Baki nodded along. I see, and I have been thinking about what was going to be the plan with the Biju when Gaara passed on, so what is your plan? He asked Naruto. Everyone looked at Naruto as the other 2 Jinchuriki looked at him. Making people Jinchuriki is not my plan if you're thinking that. My plan is when I'm on my deathbed to use a seal I am making to send them to another realm so that they are free from humans and the humans are free from them, Naruto said as everyone's eyes shot wide. How? Izumi asked him as Naruto looked over to her. The Uzumaki worship the Shinigami, we are her tools and we ask nothing in return, and I want to bet that she is going to give one boon, Naruto said as people's eyes shot wide. I see, no force is more powerful than death, so you will use something that she has wanted for so long to sweeten the deal, Itachi said as Naruto nodded. Yes, I was thinking about it the other day. What is the one soul that is always escaping her grip, the one who slithers and hides away? Naruto said as people's eyes widened even more and smiles formed. Orochimaru's, Tayuya said as Naruto nodded. Yes, the Uzumaki clan has the way to summon the Shinigami to seal things away. Why not a way to summon her for a wish? Naruto asked as people smiled while Itachi looked at Naruto with fresh eyes. I see. So while the Shadima wanted peace between the nations when he captured the beasts, Naruto wants none of that. He wants them to stand on their own without the beasts and have them grow on their own, he thought before smiling at the blonde. Then it looks like I'm joining the Uzukage, Itachi told himself. Gaara and his siblings then walked in with an old woman who saw the puppet of Sasori. I see, so Sasori turned his body into a puppet, the woman sighed as she looked down at the body. He wanted his body to be used by someone who is using the Red Sands puppets, Naruto said as Konkoro looked shocked before he picked up Sasori's body. But that is not only why you have been called, Baki said as his 3 students turned to him. The 3 of you will be joining the village that they are making and I am thinking about he was saying, but Temari held up her hand. A political mirage between me and Naruto, Temari asked as Baki nodded. Yes, and so that we can form a good relationship with them as well as we have cut Konoha off with how they are acting, Baki said as the 3 nodded. We'll need a day to get our things together, Gaara said as Baki nodded at him. He then allowed them to go, and as they walked out, He left the elderly woman with Baki to talk. The next day, everyone was gathered, ready to head to their new home before Naruto heard something within his head. Brat, the Rinnegan allows you to summon animals that are not part of contracts, and they are part of your soul, the fox told Naruto, who looked amazed. How? He asked the beast. Focus on your Rinnegan, and then you will find one of 7 main abilities of your eyes. They are called paths. You are going to be calling on Animal Path or Chikushodo. With it, you can call on the animals of your soul, and they will be from large to small, but you will have complete control of them along with the ability to summon your allies to you as well, the Kyuubi told Naruto, who nodded. Naruto closed his eyes before he slammed his hand on the ground as multiple puffs of some form in front of the group. They all looked on, and when the smoke cleared, they found something that shocked them. Eagles with dark brown feathers the size of a medium summon stood there looking at them with Rinnegan's eyes. Where the hell did that come from? Jiraiya asked his student. The fox told me, was all Naruto said as they looked at the 5 eagles, with everyone looking back at the eagles. So everyone picks an eagle, and I'll have Jiraiya-sensei lead us, he told everyone as the 3 siblings got onto one, with the 2 Uchiha and Kisame getting on another. In contrast, Kimimaro and Tayuya got on one. Jiraiya and Naruto got onto the last one, so the birds stretched their wings and took off into the air. The sage started to lead the group across the air, with Access only looking down and Naruto changing course in the air so that he knew he was going the right way. Soon, they cross into open water, and Na brings the other eagles closer as everyone looks around. I have to say this is amazing, Tayuya said as she looked around with Kimimaro doing the same and gave a small smile. The air here is nice, Kankuro said as he felt the air on his skin. There it is, Jiraiya called out as everyone turned and saw an island they were approaching. We're making our village there, the land of whirlpools, the man said as Naruto started to make the eagles descend. They got closer to the island, and soon they landed. Everyone got off their eagles as they looked around, taking in the surroundings of the beach they were on. It seems like a good places to grow fruit, Kisame said as they started to make their way towards where the old Uzumaki homeland once stood. They found the broken village from the Third and Second Great Wars when they reached it. No one knew what to say as they took in everything around them. The first thing we need to do is find a place to put our heads down for the night before we get to work, Naruto said as everyone nodded at him. They walked across the broken villages as both former Iwa ninjas closed their eyes and gave parries to the lost lives as they passed home after home. But they soon reached a part that could be used, so Naruto stood ready. Jiraiya called out the scroll they had taken from Konoha and showed Naruto the jutsu the blonde needed. And so the boy went through the 5 seals before wooden roots formed out of the ground. The wood weaved together, and everyone looked in amazement as the house formed before them. It was shaped like a U, with 2 stories with a bell-shaped hipped roof. Think of a fusion between a classic Greek and classic Japanese house. I've made rooms for everyone, along with a large living room where we can sit down and make a plan to move forward, Naruto said as everyone entered the house. Land of Sound base. Orochimaru watched as Sasuke fought a group of prisoners with Kabuto beside him, along with a pale-skinned man. It seems that Sasuke is coming along nicely, Kabuto said with a smile. Indeed, and Shin, we have started the cloning procedure, so they will soon grow into marvelous creatures for you, Orochimaru said, and the now named Shin nodded. Good, he said before he saw that his master gained a look in his eye. What is it, master? Shin asked. I had gotten word that my old fool of a teammate is making a village with his student, Sasuke's old teammate, so, why don't we do the same, and grow Otto into a real village, Orochimaru said as Kabuto looked intrigued by the notion. And are we going to make the village here in the Land of Sound? He asked, and Orochimaru nodded. Yes, and so we have the funds we need, but first, poor Sasuke needs to be trained, he said as Kabuto nodded. Orochimaru-sama, a voice called out as he turned to see one of his spies within Suna arrives. Yes, he asked the man as the spy walked closer. Naruto Uzumaki has recruited the Ichibi, Yanbi, and the Gobi Jinchuriki into his ranks along with the Ichibi's siblings, Itachi Uchiha, Kisame Hoshigaki, and an unknown female Uchiha, the spy said as Orochimaru dismissed him. So he has both Kimimaro and Tayuya as well, from what another spy said, Kabuto said, but Orochimaru waved his off. It was my fault for not ordering someone to collect their bodies when I had the chase, he said, but he did not care. Anyway, what use are they? Tayuya was the weakest of the Sound Four, and Kimimaro is deathly ill, Orochimaru said as Kabuto nodded. Master, back to the thing that you mentioned, I do not think that making a village is a good thing, Shin said as the snake Sanin looked at him. And why is that, Shin? Orochimaru asked as Kabuto looked over. Uzukage does not have the findings that it needs for a village at this moment, and our forces are prisoners with curse marks, not a reasonable fighting force, and the main ones that we will send off to battle are Kabuto, Sasuke, myself, that Gurren and her team, and yourself, Shin explained to his master who nodded. You are right, Orochimaru said before he smiled. That is why we will use the method I am using to give you children, he said as Shin's eyes shot wide. So you plan to clone people and use them to fill the ranks? Shin asked, and Orochimaru nodded. Yes, but you are right that currently, we do not have a good place to work as a village, so we will go out and do some bounty hunting, and while we do, we gather forces to use and make Oto more powerful than any other nation there is, Orochimaru said as Shin and Kabuto nodded. Understood, they said as they returned to watching Sasuke fight. Kabuto, get in touch with Itachi and tell him that I would like to speak with him here at our main base, Orochimaru said as Kabuto walked off. Shin, I have your first mission for you. You are going to break someone out of the prison within the Land of Fire, Orochimaru said as Shin looked at his master, confused. Who? He asked. Mizuki, as he played his part perfectly, so why not reward him, Orochimaru said as Shin nodded and prepared to move out. The next day, Land of Whirlpools, ruins of Uzushio. Everyone stood around a large wooden table as they looked at a rough map of the old village. Right, so here is what we're going to do. Fist, we're going to need to know how big are we making this village, Naruto said as he looked around. I say we will need something that will hold compounds for the clans, ordinary buildings for the civilians, other places of work, along with other buildings that ninja need to use along with the main building that Naruto is going to use as our leader, Itachi said as Naruto nodded at him. I say around 1,571 kilometers diameter, as most villages are around that, with the smallest being Iwa at 1,540 kilometers. Roshi told everyone as they nodded at him. And the main building should be in the middle of the village so that, while easy for people to infiltrate, our ninja can also get to it best, Kisame added as he looked at the map. A light, then. Next, we're going to be clearing some of the rubble away and starting to make it into a shrine to the fall of each of our friends, clan members, or allies in the past, Naruto said as everyone looked at him amazed. We do this so that we can make better world and so that I can have a place to pray, the demigod told them as they nodded at him. I'll have a look around the edge and see how the earth is and to see if it needs work to make it into farmland, Izumi said as she walked off. We're going to need our own force like Anbu, Naruto said as the others nodded. And they have to be given a name, Jiraiya said as the others nodded. You're right, as Iwa calls them both Anbu and Pebbles. Kumo has bolts, Kisame listed off as the others nodded. Onmitsukido, Naruto said as the others turned to him. That is what we'll call our Anbu, he said, and the others looked at each other in amazement before they nodded. I see. Then I was thinking that they could have 6 parts that attribute to it, Itachi said as the others turned to him. The first will be called the Punishment Force, and they will be the ones that are sent out of the village to deal with S-rank missions. Then the Expedition Unit. They will be the spies that we send out. Next would be the Confinement Unit. Those that keep an eye within our prisons. Next is the Torture and Interrogation Unit. And as the name says, it will get information out of enemy ninja. After that is the Secret Remote Unit. The ones that will send messages around the village. And finally the Cage Guard Unit, as the name speaks for itself, Itachi said as everyone looked at him in wonder before he looked at them. What? He asked them. It had been 10 days since Naruto's banishment, and the village was on edge. The air was thick with tension, crackling with the uncertainty of what would come. The fallout was severe. The allies Naruto had brought to the village had decided to sever their ties, cutting the bonds that had once held them together. Suna was the first to sever ties, a significant blow to the village. Their decision was a clear sign of the impact of Naruto's banishment. They felt deeply betrayed, questioning why they should aid a village that banished the one who had saved them from their Jinchuriki's rampage. Hoshigakure was the next one to stop cutting ties with Konoha. As for the hero that returned them, their meteor was kicked out, so why aid a village like that? The land of snow was next. The daimyo said that the boy who saved her was gone, so she would drop her support of Konoha. The king of the land of the moon stopped sending aid, and they believed that Konoha had lost the right to it. Then, it was a massive hit when the land of waves said they would no longer be aiding Konoha as they would want to work with a village that helps heroes, not villains. The crops from the land of vegetables had been stopped as the daimyo wanted nothing to do with Konoha anymore, for the ninja had helped them. The families from the land of tea cut their funding as they had no reason to send it. And then another massive hit came in the form of the land of fire daimyo. He was livid about what they had done, and when he found out what the former civilian council had done, he told Tsunade that they would be publicly executed, and she had an objection to it. They were executed 2 days ago, but people were having a feeling that something else was going to go wrong. While in her office, Tsunade did not care, as she filled out paperwork while waiting for the right moment. Shizune popped her head in. "Tsunade-sama, Sakura Haruno is here for her training," she said as Godem nodded, and the pink-haired girl walked in. But when Tsunade saw her face, she could not help but ask, "What's the matter?" Sakura looked at her teacher before she moved to the couch. Before all this happened, everything was going great, but now that Sasuke left, everything seemed to be falling apart, she said, but Tsunade shook her head. "It is not him who is responsible for this," Tsunade said as Sakura looked up. "This is happening because of the old council banishing Naruto, and you know that. But you are blind to it," she said as Sakura looked back down. When Sakura said nothing, Tsunade looked at the pink-haired girl. "Do you know why I took you on as my apprentice?" she asked Sakura, who shook her head. "It was because Naruto had spoken on your behalf and said that you would make an excellent medical ninja, and with some tests, I agreed," Tsunade told her as Sakura looked shocked before sighing. She then looked out the window towards the gates. "This is all because of them banishing Naruto, isn't it?" Sakura asked as Tsunade looked in the direction that she looked and nodded. "Yes, Ichiraku Ramen is planning to leave. They are in contact with Jiraiya, and from what I found out, they plan to leave to be brought over to where Naruto is," the Hokage said as Sakura nodded. "And it is not only them. I have caught word that Konohamaru Sarutobi, Udon Eyes, and Moegi Kazamatsuri plan to leave as well, as a few that sought refuge in Konoha because of Naruto," she told her. Sakura thought back to a few who would always send her glares when they passed her in the street. She could not help but blame them, as she had asked Naruto to go after Sasuke. And they have all the reason to. The elders have tried to gain power and use it to sway the influence when Minato died, and now that is why they are getting executed today by the Anbu. Tsunade continued as she looked out at the village. But all she saw was darkness. "Let's start our lesson," Tsunade said as she left the office with Sakura following her. As she walked, she reviewed everything her former team had done and started to realize something. Naruto was always the one to save the day, while Sasuke would be the one to make the trouble get worse. "Why did I never see that before?" Sakura asked herself as she walked. "Because you did not want to see it and only wanted to see Sasuke. Even when we joined Team 7, you wanted to be with Sasuke and do everything with him," her inner self told her. Sakura's mind returned to the time after Naruto beat Gaara, and she stumbled along his training and found him. He stood in front of a lake with 2 toads on his shoulders, one red and the other yellow. The red toad sent out a fountain of oil before the yellow toad released a cyclone from its mouth. Then Naruto used Kaden Gokakyu no Jutsu before the 3 jutsu mixed into a massive cyclone of flames before the 3 stopped. And that is when Sakura remembered seeing something she didn't think she had ever seen. A genuine smile on his face. But then she tried to remember if she had ever seen that smile on Sasuke's face. But no memory had come to her mind. All it was that she saw darkness, all the power Sasuke craved, and his desire to get it. And if she was being honest with herself, she knew Sasuke would give in to the curse seal. And then her mind drifted back to Naruto, with his blue eyes, which made her think of the beautiful sea they had traveled across so many times. How his smile was so infectious that it was what he smiled. It would always make her smile. And when Naruto used his Biju, even if he tried to hide it from her, he would never hurt her. He always ensured that if anything was being sent her way, it was to tell her to run. As she thought of this, she felt a warmth within her chest, and she knew that Sasuke was not causing this. No, it was Naruto. And after what seemed like an eternity within her mind, she looked up with a determined look in her eye. I will find Naruto and join him, and then together we will take down that fool of Uchiha, she declared to herself, her determination shining in her eyes. She felt her inner nodding, but she failed to see Tsunade looking at her out of the corner of her eye. It seems that she's growing up, Tsunade thought as she opened the door to her training room. Who knows, when I leave and join him with Shizune, I could take her with us. I mean, a toad is nothing without his slug, but I don't think he's going to be a toad for long, and so Sakura, you're in for hell, she added with a smile as she walked over to a scroll with a fish on it and indicated for Sakura to follow her. Land of Whirlpools, ruins of Uzushio. Everyone within Naruto's group collaborated, their unity palpable, to build a shrine as Roshi and Gaara carried large rock tablets from the old homes with columns. Naruto had turned into a horse and was pulling a cart of rocks for them as the others who were not in the know were amazed by his abilities. Han aided Naruto by pushing the cart from behind, while Jiraiya used tools from the toads to stick the rocks together. Kankuro and Kimimaro carefully etched names into stone, while Temari and Izumi ensured the names were right. Itachi and Kisame were then using water release to wash away the dust. Off to the side of the working was Tayuya, who was cooking with some of the food Naruto had handed them to all eat. Everyone had made good headway. Alright, everyone, it's time for a break, Tayuya called out as she made food. Han made sure to undo the cart connecting Naruto to the cart as the demigod changed back to human before they all walked over. We're making good progress with the shrine, but we're going to need some help, Itachi said as he served himself a bowl of stew, and the others nodded. If I remember right, the land of waves is not that far from us, Kankuro said as he had a spoonful. We could ask them, and with us having the bounty of both Deidara and Sasori, we can use that money to help fix up the village before he starts building the walls, he added as the others nodded. Good idea, Naruto said with a nod before he had a look around. Itachi, you will go to Wave with Kimimaro, and ask for aid in fixing our new home, he told them as Kisame looked confused. I'm normally the one paired with Itachi, he said to Naruto, who nodded. I know, that is why I'm having you go with Izumi. You both are heading to Taki and help their Jinchuriki escape, Naruto told them as both looked at him. Taki is possibly the second worst when it comes to dealing with Jinchuriki, first goes to Suna, he said as Gaara nodded at his experience growing up. Fair, the three siblings said. So, Use 2 is going to infiltrate Taki, take their Jinchuriki, and see if we can take out any Akatsuki member who is after them, Izumi asked Naruto, who nodded. Yes, he told her as she looked at her new partner. From what we know, Hidan and Kakazu are going to be going after the Nanbi, Itachi said as Kisame nodded. Taki imprisons her above the village in their grade 3, a tree that was stolen from Konoha at the gravesite of the Shodem Hokage, Naruto said as everyone looked shocked. And with that tree acting as a cage, the current leader of Taki does not like how she acts, so they want her dead, and I have a feeling, he started as everyone looked at him, that they will let the Akatsuki get to her, Izumi said as the demigod nodded. Yes, and so with this in place, Kisame, you know the Akatsuki teams, and while Itachi does know them as well, Izumi is an unknown, Naruto said as Kisame nodded. I get it, he said as Itachi nodded at him. Got it, we'll head out tomorrow, same time as Itachi and Kimimaro, Izumi said as Kisame nodded at him. He then looked over his Jinchuriki siblings. Roshi, you and I are going to stay here, as I will need to be here when the men from the Land of Waves get here. With you here, you can help me make plans for the main gate of the village, and we can make a marker for the point, he told the lava release user. Got it, he said as he looked down at the map of the Land of Whirlpools. Han, you, Gaara, and Temari are going on a mission to the Land of Beanjam. From what I heard when we were on our way to the Land of Earth, there is a clan there that is looking for a home, Naruto told them as the three nodded. What do we know of this clan? Han asked Naruto. Jiraiya looked over to the armored ninja. From what my spies have told me, they use blood release, he told them, as they looked amazed. But they are being hunted down by Kumo, as they have got it into their heads that they are the ones who need them, the sage told him. Understood, Gaara said before Naruto turned the last three. And our mission? Tayuya asked with a smile. I'm sending the three of you over to Kiri to see what is going on, Naruto said as Kisame looked at him. And there is a reason why I'm not sending you, Kisame, or you, Kimimaro, he told them as they looked at each other before looking back at him. Why? Kisame asked him. Kiri will want your heads as you both are formerly from the Land of Water. And another thing. We don't need Kiri killing you or you them. We just need information about them, and I think something is not right, he told them, and both Kisame and Kimimaro nodded. Like what? Jiraiya asked. Naruto looked over at him before he looked back at his food. I've been using Iris message to watch the Uzukage, and he seems to be unhinged, to put it mildly, and he seems to be under the influence of something, he told them before his eyes turned dark. And he's not a true Jinchuriki like most of us, Naruto explained as they looked shocked. What do you mean? Itachi asked him. With the fox's help, I found out that Yagura is not the real Jinchuriki of the Sanbi, but more of a pseudo-Jinchuriki, he said before he looked at the three that he's sending to Kiri. Make sure that you find out what is going on, but you must make sure that each one of you is not spotted or captured, as I think I speak for everyone when I say I do not want the residents of the Land of Water to hate us for blowing it up, Naruto said with a smile as the three nodded. And so, with his orders given, everyone ate before they all got back to work. The next day, Itachi, Kimimaro, and a clone stood on a dock that the clone had created with wood. Release, good luck, and I wish you well, he said to them. Thank you, they said as Itachi walked over to the edge of the dock, biting his finger before going through 5 seals and slamming his hand down. Kachiyose no jutsu, he called out as a large puff of smoke formed and 2 wings formed. Once the smoke was blown away, it showed a large crow waiting for them. Itachi, why have you called me here? The crow asked Itachi as Kimimaro walked over. Can you take the 2 of us over to the Land of Waves? He asked his summon, who nodded at him. The 2 climbed onto the back of the crow. Once the both of them were settled on the back of the crow, it stretched its wings before taking off into the air. Itachi guided the crow before looking back at Kimimaro. Are you alright? He asked the teen. Yes, Kimimaro said as he looked out over the sea. I've never really been sent on missions, he said as Itachi raised a brow. Why is that? He asked. Orochimaru did not want me to die out in the field where he could not use my Kekkei Genkai, Kimimaro said as Itachi listened. But now, with Naruto-sama, and him healing me with the use of his chains, along with the healing power that the fox gives him is working to fight and beat my illness, he told the Uchiha, who nodded as Naruto was doing the same for him. And I can't help but feel, Kimimaro said before Itachi cut him off. You have to prove to him that you are worthy of being a Uzu ninja, Itachi said as he felt the same way. They looked at each other before giving each other a small smile. Then they started to descend, and they looked out and saw that it was a small village. People looked at the massive crow, which was lowering in height before it landed in the village center, and both the Uzu ninjas got off the back. What brings you here? A man asked as he approached them. Kimimaro looked over to him and held up a scroll. We have a message from our leader, Naruto Uzumaki, and we have a request for Tazuna, the bridge builder, he said as he held out the scroll. People whispered to each other before a boy walked forward. I'll take you to him, he said as he indicated for them to follow him. And so they did, as they moved up a hill to a forest behind a house. Kimimaro and Itachi followed him into the house as the boy walked in. Grandpa, some people are here saying that they have a message from Naruto, the boy called into the house as the man who had been called out of an office came over to the door. So you both have a message for me, the man said as Kimimaro handed over the scroll. Tazuna read over the scroll before he smiled and nodded. Alright then, Inari, gather the workers and tell them to get to the boats, Tazuna told his grandson, who nodded and ran out the door. You two come in, and then we'll talk about what we'll be building and what we'll need so that you can gather the funds, he told the two. We have around no million ryo, Itachi said as Tazuna's eyes shot wide before his smile grew. I see, but don't worry, for the price will be cut for the good your leader has done for this land, he told them as he looked at the plans within the scroll. So the village will have a 1,571 kilometers diameter, the second largest village, with Konoha being that of 1,580 kilometers diameter, Tazuna said as he stroked his beard. He looked over the scroll before he saw a seal. What's within the seal? He asked them as Itachi looked at it before he released what was inside. It showed blueprints, floor plans, and pictures of Uzu. Are these? Tazuna asked, looking at the pictures. The current state of Uzu, yes, Kimimaro nodded. Tazuna looked down at the pictures, then over the other paperwork with the pictures and shuffled through them. Then he looked up at them. What colors shall we go with? He asked them as he reviewed some clay and roof tile samples. For the main village, red, black and gold, Itachi said as he looked over the samples. We would like for the pattern of the whirlpool like it was before Iwa, Kumo, and Kiri had attacked and left it in its current state, Kimimaro said as he pointed to the pictures as Tazuna nodded at him. And Naruto same will be using his wood release to make the wood for you to use in the building, and he will use another jutsu to make lodging for you and the workers so that while you are there, you can use the homes he is building and making at the moment, he added. In contrast, Tazuna nodded as he pulled out paper and started to write things down. The three talked for hours about things they would build and where they would be put. After a few more hours, Inari returned. Everyone is ready, and the boats are fully stocked, and that clan that was looking for a home has said they are joining us and then possibly the new village, he told his grandfather. Tazuna looked at his grandson. Are all the tools on board, along with the equipment? He asked as the boy nodded. Yep, and everyone is getting ready to go to the boats, Inari said as Tazuna nodded at him. Alright, we move out in 2 hours, I want everyone ready to move, Tazuna told his grandson as the boy left again to give the message. Itachi and Kimimaro smiled at each other before Itachi gained a look. What is this clan? He asked Tazuna. Tazuna looked at him. They are called the Kijin clan. They were wondering until they ended up in town a few months ago, Tazuna said as he got up, and the two followed him. They looked around and saw people start to leave their homes and head to the docks. The men and women had tool belts. They saw people carrying bags of cement in their clothes and other materials towards the docks, and the two nodded. Once everyone was done and the boats were loaded, they left. At the same time, Land of Hot Water. Kisame and Izumi walked across the roads as they made their way to a small town. We'll stay in the Land of Hot Water for the following 3 towns before we head into the Land of Fire and then into the Land of Lakes, Kisame said as Izumi nodded at him. It's a good idea, and that way, we can cut out any movement into the Land of Sound, she said as they walked across the town. And then we'll see if we can find any bounty on our way, Izumi added as Kisame nodded. That sounds like a plan, the shark man said before they both turned to see someone not that far away. They were talking with a woman, but one thing they had in common was wearing snake pattern clothing in shades of purple. Auto Ninja, Kisame said to his current partner. Kisame and Izumi flowed them quietly into the forest close to the town. They found a small snake statue that blended into the forest, and if they had not followed the Auto Ninja, they would not have seen it. They watched as they formed a seal, touching the snake, which moved out of the way before descending the uncovered stairs. Izumi and Kisame shared a glance before slowly making their way to the statue. Izumi used the same seal before the snake moved aside again, and they moved down the stairs. As the two reached the bottom of the stairs, they found a hallway filled with doors. Is this a living quarters? Izumi said as she looked around. Kisame shook his head at her. It's more than that. Orochimaru would not just build a base to have living quarters for his men, he said as the two walked around. They passed door after door before Izumi stopped by one of the doors. It was different from the other doors as this one was a double door with a metal SY giant above it. It read A1. I feel something in here, she said as she opened it. And what she found was shocking. People were floating in a cyan liquid, and they were all in class tanks. What the hell? Kisame asked as the two walked around the room until they found a table with notes. With the experiment station on a member of the Hazuka, I have found a way to create a clan that can turn their body to fire and another to lighting. These 2 clans will be a boon for Uzukage, he said as he scowled at the paperwork before he looked back at the people. They were experiments, Izumi said as she looked around. And if I know Orochimaru, they were taken against their will, Kisame said as she looked around before they heard whispering, and the two hid. Dr. Akahata, the test subjects for the D5 lab are ready, a woman said as they saw a man with short dark brown hair dressed in the standard Auto Ninja uniform, including a long lab coat. Good, the feline DNA has been gathered, so we shall start the process of injection and merging, Dr. Akahata said as both Kisame and Izumi looked at each other before they flowed quietly and slowly. In every lab they passed, they looked within and saw the same thing with Lab A1, with people within glass tanks. There were people with scales, almost like snakes, and some with wings that made them look like angles with different bird-like wings. And it only got worse from there. Let's get out of here, Kisame said, and Izumi nodded as the two made their way out silently. Once they were out and made their way to a lake, why are we here? Izumi asked as Kisame summoned a shark and pulled out a scroll. I'm sending a message to Naruto and telling him what we have found, and I'm going to ask for both Itachi and Kimimaro to aid us, and when we free them down there, we can then head to Taki and continue our mission," Kisame said as he finished putting a seal on the scroll and then summoned a Maize Buncheon and sealed it within the scroll and handed it over to the shark. "Swim fast," he told the shark, who nodded at him and dived deep into the lake before it disappeared. Izumi looked shocked at that before looking over to Kisame. The shark summoned clan can reaper wherever there is water. And with everyone going to be at the dock waiting, she will give the message, Kisame told her as Izumi nodded. The two made their way into town and waited for the reinforcements. Land of Whirlpools, docks. Naruto and Roshi stood at the docks as they watched 3 ships start to make their way over. "I'm glad that we have a seal to stop the whirlpools," Roshi said as he looked at the calm sea. "Yep," Naruto said with a nod. "Hey, kid," a voice called to Naruto as he looked down and saw a shark looking at him. "I have a message from Kisame," she said as she showed Naruto a scroll. "Thank you," he said, taking the scroll off her as the shark returned to the summoning realm. Naruto undid the scroll and placed it on the ground to release the clone. "Hey boss, we've got a situation within the land of hot water," the clone said as they released the information to Naruto, who looked at the oncoming boats. "I see when we get the builders ready, and I'll send over Itachi, Kimimaro, and Roshi to back you up," Naruto told the clone, who nodded. "And while you wait, make a note of every auto ninja around the area so that we do not get blindsided by anything," he ordered as the clone nodded and dispelled, sending the orders back to the original. "Are you that it's a good idea to send me?" Roshi asked the blonde. Naruto looked at the oncoming boats that were full of workers. "Yes. I have this feeling that Orochimaru is up to something war that creating Kekkei Genkai, but I do not know what it is, and so I need my best to find out what it is," Naruto said as he turned to the Yonbi Jinchuriki, "and with the 5 of you there, we have more eyes on the situation while we can save them, and maybe help them with what has happened to them," he said as the man nodded. "I'll go get ready for a fight. You tell Itachi and Kimimaro what's going on," Roshi said as he walked over to the house. Naruto looked out at the boats again, making the docks bigger as they got closer. Itachi walked off first, "Get some builders along with a new clan for Uzu," he said as he pointed to a group of people with horns on their heads as they descended from the boat. "Good," Naruto said with a nod before he looked at the teen, "and while I would like to be smiling at this moment, you and Kimimaro have a mission with Roshi to aid Kisame and Izumi," Naruto told him before he told him everything that the clone told him. "I see. May I take some of the Kijin clan to see how they are in a fight and see if they can be given a rank?" Itachi asked. Naruto nodded with a smile. "Yes, take 3 with you so that you can cover more ground," he said as the Kijin clan walked off the boat. A man with long red hair walked up to Naruto, and the demigod noted that he had 2 black horns on his head. He wore black clothing with a thick woolen collar covered by dark red armor. With him was a woman with long flowing pink hair and 1 white horn dressed in a kimono, and with her was a girl and boy who looked in their teens up behind him. "Hello. My name is Abaki, and I am the leader of the Kijin clan. I thank you for allowing our people a home within your new village," Abaki said with a bow, and his clan bowed as well. "Think nothing of it," Naruto said as the man rose from the bow. "And I have a mission for 3 members of your clan if you like," he said as Abaki nodded. "Yes, Zenki, Naka, Goki, you 3 have a mission," Abaki called out as 3 people walked over. The first was a woman with short blue hair, dark green eyes, and 2 long black horns. She wore a gray furred light blue tunic, dark blue pants, and ninja armored sandals. Then, there was a blonde man with 1 white horn and stormy blue eyes. He was short and wore black pants and black boots. The last was a man with a mohawk of red hair, stubby black horns, and dark green eyes. He wore a gray furred dark red tunic, dark blue pants, and ninja armored sandals. "What is the mission, sir?" the woman asked. "Zenki, you, your brother, and Naka are going to join a few people on a mission," Abaki said to her as Zenki nodded. Roshi walked back over as Itachi filled Kimimaro in on what was going on as they grouped up. "I'll summon a few eagles for you to get over to the land of hot water. They are faster than your crows, Itachi. When they reach the land, seal them with a few scrolls so that you can use them for the return trip," he told them as they nodded at him. "Yes, sir," the 6 said as Naruto summoned his 5 eagles. The people climbed onto them before they took off. Naruto then turned to Tazuna, We have already marked points where the Uzukage building will be located along with one of the points where one of the gates will be located, Naruto said as he started leading people into the ruins. With Gaara's group, Land of Fire, Nokoribi village. The group of 3 moved across the small village. They took in the sights, and Temari started to write things down. What notes are you making? Han asked her as they found a hotel. Places that we can open back in Uzu, like a fish market, Temari said as she pointed her pencil to a group of men selling fish. I see, and with us on an island, we can fish directly from the sea and get fresh fish, Gaara said as he checked them into 2 rooms, one for the boys and another for Temari. Indeed, and with our mission right now, make sure that we talk with this clan to start with, Han said before he stopped along with Gaara as they both looked over their shoulders at a person walking down the road. What is it? Temari asked the 2. Something close to our Biju, and it's within that young woman, Han said as he pointed to the girl no older than Gaara walking down the road. She had long reddish-brown hair held up by a blue headband, thick eyebrows, blue eyes, and a mole under her left eye. She wore a cyan blue gi with a cream-colored vest over it and blue-covered and dark arm and leg bands. Shikaku said that it's not real, Gaara said, looking at the girl and holding his head. And he is angry at that beast for some reason, he said as Han nodded. Gobi is the same as she is saying that it was an experiment that someone had done the statue and mixed chakra from 3 of the Biju together to make it, Han said as he looked at her. What 3? Temari asked. 9, 7, and 1, Han said as they watched her walk before Temari followed her. Han and Gaara looked at each other before following her. Hey, Temari called out as the girls stopped and turned around to see Temari walk over to her. Yes, she asked the older girl. Can I ask you something? She asked back as Gaara and Han walked up. And that is, the younger girl asked. Do you want to join a village that is being created at this point? Temari asked as the girl raised a brow. Why, so you can have a Biju within your village? The girl asked them, but Gaara and Han shook their heads. No, we already have 4 within our village at the moment, Han said as she looked shocked. And I wanted to ask you if you wanted to join us, Temari asked as the girl looked at her with a raised brow before turning to Han and Gaara. And if I join, what do I get out of it? She asked them. You can follow whatever job you want to, Gaara said, and the girl looked shocked at what the sand user had said. So, if I wanted to be a doctor, the girl asked them as Gaara and Han nodded at her. Then you can be one here, and once we gain doctors for our village you can be one, Han said as he looked at the girl. Han, are you sure that this is a good idea? The Ribi is not a beast that can be controlled, the Gobi told her host as the girl looked at Temari. The 2 started speaking. I am, and I think that with Naruto using the Rinnegan, he can help both this girl and the Ribi, Han told Kirin, confused. What do you mean? She asked. The Ribi is without a name, and they are without the orientation that you and your siblings have, Han said to his beast, which he could feel was nodding along. But with the Rinnegan, Naruto could use it to fix the Ribi, give it a name, and help this girl be who she is meant to be, he told her, as the Gobi was silent for a while before they nodded. Alright, let's see where this goes, shall we? She told him as she sent Shukaku everything that was going on and that they would not be attacking the girl. Now, the group of 4 returned to the hotel as they changed their rooms for Temari to have a 2-bedroom for her and the new girl, Amaru. And so the 4 went to bed, not knowing that the first victory their village was going to make was with them asleep. Land of Hot Water. Izumi and Kisame met up with Itachi's group, and they sealed the eagles within scrolls for them to use when they returned to the village. Where is it? Itachi asked as Kisame led him to the snake statue. Izumi was going to use the seal, but Itachi stopped her. We're not going in with stealth, we're going in with intent to destroy, so we force our way in, Itachi said as he turned to Goki, who nodded as he walked over to the statue before his fist was enveloped by chakra and he punched it, and from that hit it sent out a wave of chakra that turned the statue to dust. Move out, Itachi said as everyone quickly descended the stairs. What the? Someone said before they had their head cut off by Zenki, who was running forward at a fast speed that she left after images behind her as her blade zipped around. I'm glad there's another swordsman now, Kisame said as he used Samahata to tear pieces out of a man running at Zenki. Kimimaro shot out bone pellets that took out any auto ninja running down corridors towards them. I'm a swordsman, you know, he said as he pulled out a bone sword and began cutting down anyone who got close to him. I know, but you focus on Ukeke Genkai too much, Kisame said as he swung his sword. That I would like to challenge you to see if you are really a swordsman of the mist, Zenki asked as she cut down another man. Kisame smiled savagely at her as they worked together to eliminate anyone who got in their way. You three keep everyone's attention, while the rest of us get to work, Itachi ordered as Kisame nodded. Naka, you go and find that doctor, Goki. You go with Roshi to start to help the people be free. Izumi, you and I are going to gather everything that Otto has been up to, so that once we are done here I can go over everything, he said as everyone nodded and got to work. Roshi and Goki went to the first lab Izumi and Kisame found and started removing people from the glass tanks. Once they were released, they woke up and looked around, confused. Where are we? A girl asked as she looked around. Somewhere that is not good, Goki said as he helped a man stand up. Roshi looked around and saw that everyone in the tanks had dark orange hair. So that is what happened to you, he said as people looked at him before he pointed at their hair. Everyone looked at each other in shock. Let's get out here first before you do anything, Roshi said as he led them to the doors. Otto Ninja came running at them with kunai ready. But he was met by a fist of lava that sent him into a wall. Shall we? He asked them as they all started to make their way to the stairs. Once the last people were upstairs and out of the base, they went to the next load of people they had to get out. Many people had long cattails and 2 cat eyes on their heads. What sort of man would do this? Goki asked as he and Roshi walked in and started to release the cat-human hybrids. Meanwhile, while the 2 Uchiha were going from room to room, taking everything that was not nailed down, that reigned from beds to chairs, to paperwork to books, they were taking everything within the base. It seems that we're getting a lot of stuff for Uzu, Izumi said as she sealed away a ton of paperwork. Yes, and hopefully, people will live there as well, Itachi told her as they watched Goki carry a young girl with snake-like scales over her arms. The two returned to what they were doing and then moved into one of the labs. But that is when the two of them froze. Within these tanks were hundreds of children who looked the same, and the only way you could tell the gender of these children was by the figure of some of them. They all had pale white skin and faint blonde-colored hair slicked back and tapered to a point. They lacked eyebrows and wore perpetually wide-eyed expressions with dark rings around their eyes, giving them a somewhat deranged appearance. Itachi, Izumi asked as she looked around before she found a chart with notes. Hey, listen to this, she called as he turned to her. With the DNA of both Shin Uchiha and Sasuke Uchiha, we have managed to grow the bodies of these clones, but they are defective at the moment as a batch of 100 has been sent to the main base for experimentation to see if the flaw can be fixed. I had given a suggestion, but Orochimaru-sama said that it was not worth looking for them as they were nowhere near the land of hot water. She read out and Izumi looked over to Itachi who looked at her. What are you planning? He asked her as she looked back. I've got a crazy idea, but I need you on board with it, she told him as Itachi looked at her. And that is, Itachi asked, already guessing where she was going with this. We release them and tell them that they can be saved, but we use a stairs seal to put them all in a stasis so that when we get a medic or when that perv calls on Tsunade, she can help them, and then we will have a true clan once more, she said as Itachi looked over at the children before he nodded. Back to the two freeing people, they were helping women and children with wings who could not walk because of how the wings felt on their bodies. They were getting used to the new adjustment. When Roshi stood by the stairs, he saw Zenki, Kimimaro, Kisame, and Dr. Akahata walking up to him. Every auto ninja has been wiped out and we're just waiting for Itachi and Izumi before he can destroy this base, Kisame said as they waited. After 10 minutes, the two Uchiha walked over to them. Are you ready? Itachi asked home as everyone nodded at him. So they all went up the stairs to the forest before Kisame formed a seal and an explosion filled the air. The ground started to sink a little before it stopped. Izumi looked at the former people inside the base before explaining what happened while Kisame passed the doctor over to Itachi. He tried to make a run for it, but it was thanks to Kimimaro shooting him in the knee that we managed to capture him, Zenki said as Itachi looked at the doctor before he looked over to Kisame. Why are you giving him to me? He asked the man. You're the head of Onmitsukido, Kisame said with a smile, but Itachi returned the favor by handing the doctor back over. And you going to be the head of the torture and interrogation unit, so as your boss, I want him singing like a bird. The Uchiha told him as Kisame nodded, walked over to a quiet spot, and started his interrogation. He then turned his head over to his fiancée and found that she was telling everyone who they were and why they had come before everyone started talking among each other before they nodded at her. "We will join you," a man with fire-orange hair said as he stood up. "As will we," a woman with black hair and black cat features said. "That goes for us as well," a man with cream-colored hair as others with the same shade of hair color nodded with him. More and more of the people that they had freed from the base started to say that they would join them as Izumi smiled before Roshi noticed something. "I don't think that the eagles that I have sealed will be Ina," he said as the others nodded. "I don't think that even some of the CORWS have Ina that carry everyone," Itachi said before he saw that Naka gained an idea. "What is it?" he asked the blonde. "Where the land of hot water meets the sea. I was thinking about getting a boat for the people, and while yes, we will be traveling in a large group, a large enough group of us moving together with them testing out their new abilities, they can get to the boats, and with one of you sending a message to Naruto-sama we can use one of the boats that the works from the Land of Waves used to carry these people across to Uzu," Naka said as everyone looked at him. "Good thinking, Naka," Zenki said as she bit her finger and slammed it onto the ground as a large wolf was next to her. "Go to Abaki-sama and tell him that we will need a boat at the docks of the Land of Hot Water," she told the wolf before it returned to the summoning realm. Kisame and Izumi looked at everyone before they nodded at their fellow Uzu ninja and started to make their way into town, followed by everyone else. In the morning, Itachi stood in front of the large group that they had freed from Orochimaru's base and looked at Kisame and Izumi. "Good luck getting to Taki. Watch out, as they have people patrolling the main entrance every 30 minutes, he told them as they nodded at him. "Got it," Kisame said before he started to make his way out. Izumi leaned in and kissed Itachi on the cheek. "When I get back, I would like to see what you're going to make the Uchiha compound look like," she told him as she joined Kisame. The two returned to their trek towards the Land of Lakes. Itachi turned to his group before they nodded, and everyone started to walk in the opposite direction to Kisame and Izumi. Land of Water, Sakana Town. Jiraiya, Tayuya, and Kankuro moved through the small town, taking back roads and other routes into the Land of Water so they would not be noticed. "So far the only thing that we've found is that the Uzukage is a mad bastard," Tayuya said as they walked. Jiraiya nodded as he looked around, then held his hand for the other two to stop and hide. Once they hid, they saw Kiri ninjas walking down the road heading towards the town. "I heard that there was a Kekkei Genkei user within Sakana, a surviving member of the Yuki clan," one of the Kiri ninjas said as they passed by. "Really I heard it was someone with storm release," another said. Others started adding what they were told before they stopped. "Why are they stopping?" Kankuro asked as the three moved quietly to see that the ninja had stopped because a woman was standing in their way. She was a tall, slender woman with fair skin. She had green eyes and ankle-length, auburn hair styled into a herringbone pattern at the back, a top knot tied with a dark blue band, and 4 bangs at the front. 2 bangs were short, with one covering her right eye, and 2 were long, crossing each other on her bust, just below her chin. She wore a long-sleeved, dark blue dress just below her knees. It is closed at the front with a zipper and is kept open on the front right side from the waist down. The dress only covers the upper part of her arms and the underside of her breasts. Underneath, she wears a mesh armor that covers slightly more of her upper body than her dress. She also wears a skirt the same color as her dress and mesh leggings reaching down over her knees underneath those. Around her waist, she wears a belt with a pouch attached to the back on the left, high-heeled sandals, shin guards reaching up over her knees, dark blue nail polish on her fingers and toes, and is usually shown with purple lipstick. Mei Terumi, a Kiri ninja said as they started to reach for their weapons, but Mei dispatched them all without effort. "Now that was skill," Jiraiya said as he and his small team walked out. Mei turned to him and smiled. "Jiraiya of the Sannin, are you here to aid us?" Mei asked him. "That's all for my now. If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments.